What if the mind of the demon emperor, the strategic genius who brought the world to its knees, was reborn into the vessel of the Nine Tails? A shinobi world built on lies will now face a rebellion crafted with absolute intellect and a fearsome new power. This is the story of how one man's will changes everything.
The Hokage's office had never felt so cold. Naruto Uzumaki stood before the gathered council of the Hidden Leaf Village, chains binding his wrists, and felt something awaken behind his left eye. It burned, a searing, magnificent agony that made the world sharpen into crystalline focus. The arguing voices of the elders faded to background noise as power flooded through his consciousness, and suddenly he understood. He understood everything. Danzo Shimura stood at the edge of the council chamber, his face a mask of practiced concern, and Naruto knew with absolute certainty that this man had orchestrated his downfall. The stolen intelligence, the fabricated evidence of treason, the whispered poison in Tsunade's ear, all of it traced back to the bandaged warhawk who feared what the Nine Tails Jinchuriki might become. The burning sensation intensified, and Naruto felt his left eye transform. He didn't need a mirror to know what had appeared there. He could feel it in his very soul. A red, bird-shaped sigil pulsed with otherworldly power, and with it came knowledge, the power of absolute obedience. One command, one person, one time. Irresistible, absolute. The evidence is irrefutable, Danzo was saying, his voice carrying the weight of manufactured authority. Naruto Uzumaki has betrayed the village. He has sold our secrets to enemy nations. The penalty for treason is, "Look at me, Danzo." The words cut through the chamber like a blade. Naruto's voice had changed, no longer the enthusiastic boy who dreamed of being Hokage, but something colder, sharper, infinitely more dangerous. His strategic mind, newly awakened, impossibly vast, had already calculated 17 ways this scene could unfold. He chose the most efficient. Danzo's visible eye met Naruto's left eye, and in that instant, the world tilted on its axis. The red sigil blazed with crimson light, and Naruto felt the power surge forth like a tsunami of pure will. "I, Naruto Uzumaki, command you, kill yourself." The effect was instantaneous. Danzo's hand moved to his tanto without hesitation, without even a flicker of resistance. His face remained impassive as he drew the blade across his own throat, the motion precise and final. Blood sprayed across the polished floor of the council chamber as Danzo Shimura, the darkness of the shinobi world, collapsed and died by his own hand. The chamber erupted into chaos. "What have you done?" Tsunade's voice shook with horror and rage as she slammed her hands on her desk. "Naruto, what? What I should have done long ago," Naruto interrupted, his voice clinical and cold. The chains around his wrists shattered as he channeled chakra with surgical precision. "Before you execute me for a crime I didn't commit, know this. Danzo orchestrated my downfall. Root has infiltrated every level of this village's government. The evidence against me was fabricated. But none of that matters now, does it?" He surveyed the room with his transformed eye, watching the elders scramble backward in fear. Tsunade stood frozen, her face a mixture of shock and something that might have been grief. The Anbu guards moved to attack, but Naruto raised his hand. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 20 perfect replicas filled the chamber, each one moving with predatory grace. Naruto's strategic mind orchestrated them like pieces on a chessboard, positioning them to cover every angle, every escape route. Not to kill, that would be wasteful. To dominate, to demonstrate the futility of resistance. "I'm leaving," Naruto announced, his voice carrying absolute authority. "Banish me if it makes you feel better about your complicity in Danzo's conspiracy. Declare me a missing 9. Hunt me if you dare. But understand this, the shinobi system that cast me out, that feared me, that saw a weapon instead of a person, it ends. I will tear it down brick by brick, and from its ashes, I will build something better." "You're talking about war," Koharu whispered, her aged face pale. "I'm talking about revolution." Naruto's smile was sharp and utterly without mercy. The only ones who should kill are those prepared to be killed. I learned that today. He vanished in a swirl of leaves, his shadow clones dissipating in perfect synchronization. The last thing the council heard was his voice, echoing with theatrical precision, "Checkmate, Lady Tsunade." 3 months later, in the neutral territory between Fire and Wind Country, a legend was born. The merchant caravan had been attacked by bandits, 15 armed men who thought themselves predators. They learned the truth when a figure in a white mask descended from the trees like an avenging spirit. The mask was a work of art, crafted to resemble a fox's face, but stylized into something almost regal, with intricate red markings that matched the Geass sigil hidden beneath. "Gentlemen bandits," the masked figure said, his voice amplified by carefully placed chakra to sound otherworldly and commanding. "You have a choice. Surrender your weapons and leave this place, or face justice at the hands of Kitsune." That was what he called himself now. Not Naruto Uzumaki. That name belonged to a discarded past. Kitsune, the fox spirit, the masked revolutionary who appeared wherever the shinobi system showed its rot. The bandit leader laughed. "And what's one masked freak going to do against 15 of us?" Naruto's response was a tactical masterpiece executed in 4 seconds. Shadow clone jutsu. 30 clones materialized instantly, surrounding the bandits in a perfect encirclement. Before the criminals could react, Naruto was among them, his movements a blur of devastating efficiency. Rasengan! The spiraling sphere of chakra caught the first bandit in the chest, sending him flying. Another clone called out wind-style Gale Palm to knock 3 more off their feet. But it wasn't just raw power, it was the strategy that made Naruto unstoppable. His genius intellect had dissected the bandits' formation in an instant, identified their leader, their weapons specialist, their fastest fighter. He struck at the key nodes of their resistance with surgical precision. One clone used a substitution jutsu to appear behind the leader, striking pressure points to paralyze him. Another disarmed the weapons specialist with a precisely thrown kunai that severed the man's weapon harness. The entire fight lasted 12 seconds. Naruto stood among the groaning bandits, his white mask catching the sunlight. The merchants cowered in their wagons, uncertain whether they'd been saved or simply exchanged one danger for another. "Tell everyone you meet," Naruto said, his voice carrying that same theatrical authority. "Tell them that Kitsune protects those the system has abandoned. Tell them that the old order is dying and something better is being born." He vanished into the forest, leaving the bandits tied up with ninja wire and the merchants unharmed but thoroughly shaken. This was how it began. Small actions, strategic interventions, each one carefully calculated to build a legend. Naruto wasn't strong enough yet to challenge the 5 great nations directly. His strategic mind understood that such a confrontation would be suicide. But he could build something, recruit followers, create an organization that would become his instrument for reshaping the world. He called it the Order of the Fox. Sasuke Uchiha found him 2 weeks after the bandit incident. Naruto sensed his former teammate's chakra signature approaching his temporary hideout, an abandoned monastery in the mountains between lightning and fire country, and allowed himself a small smile. This confrontation had been inevitable. Sasuke's pride wouldn't allow Naruto's dramatic departure to go unanswered. "You've changed," Sasuke said as he emerged from the shadows of the monastery courtyard. His Sharingan was already active, the 3 tomoe spinning slowly. "The dead last of our class doesn't move like that, doesn't talk like that. What happened to you, Naruto?" "I evolved." Naruto stood on the monastery's upper balcony, his mask hanging from his belt. There was no point hiding his identity from Sasuke. His former rival would recognize his chakra signature regardless. "I shed the weakness of my former self and became something greater." "The question, Sasuke, is what you're doing here. Did Tsunade send you to drag me back in chains?" "She sent me to understand." Sasuke's voice was controlled, but Naruto's enhanced perception caught the underlying tension. "Danzo's dead. You killed him in front of the entire council. But the evidence against you, some of it was real, Naruto. The intelligence leaks, the meetings with agents from other villages. Did you actually commit treason?" "Define treason." Naruto descended from the balcony in a graceful leap, landing silently. "Is it treason to recognize that the shinobi system is fundamentally broken? That it creates child soldiers and calls it patriotism? That it perpetuates cycles of violence and calls it duty? I didn't sell secrets to enemy nations, Sasuke. I opened communications with reformers in other villages, people who see the same rot I do. That's still treason by the village's laws. Then the village's laws are unjust. Naruto's voice sharpened. If the king does not lead, how can he expect his subordinates to follow? The Hokage and the council were so busy fearing me, so consumed by their paranoia about the Nine Tails, that they couldn't see Danzo's corruption festering in their own ranks. They chose to believe his lies because it was easier than confronting their own complicity. Sasuke's hand moved to his sword. So you're planning to destroy the village? To tear down everything our sensei fought for? I'm planning to destroy the system that made villages necessary. Naruto's strategic mind was already gaming out this conversation, analyzing Sasuke's body language, his chakra flow, his emotional state. There was anger there, yes, but also doubt. Good. Doubt could be cultivated into understanding. Tell me, Sasuke, why did you really come here? Not the mission Tsunade gave you. The real reason. The Uchiha's jaw tightened. Because Orochimaru offered me power again. He said that you'd found something that made you stronger, and if I wanted to match you, I should join him. And you're considering it. It wasn't a question. Naruto's analytical mind had already deduced that truth from Sasuke's hesitation. Because revenge against Itachi still consumes you. Because the village can't give you the strength you need. Because deep down, you know the system failed your clan just as it failed me. Don't compare us. Why not? Naruto interrupted, his voice sharp as a blade. We're both victims of the same corrupt machine. Your clan was massacred because the village leadership feared the Sharingan's power. I was persecuted because they feared the Nine Tails. Danzo orchestrated both tragedies, and the Hokage let it happen. We are the same, Sasuke. The only difference is that I've stopped pretending loyalty to a system that never valued us. Sasuke's Sharingan spun faster. So what? You want me to join your revolution? Become one of your followers? No. Naruto's smile was calculating. I want you to make a choice with full understanding of the consequences. Join Orochimaru, and you'll become his tool, a weapon aimed at targets of his choosing. Stay with the Leaf, and you'll remain shackled by their fear and limitations. Or, he paused for dramatic effect, letting the moment build. Join me and become something greater. Not a follower, Sasuke, a partner. Together, we could reshape this world. Partners? Skepticism dripped from the word. The Order of the Fox needs talented individuals who understand the system's failures. You have the Sharingan, combat prowess, and strategic thinking that would be invaluable. I have... Naruto gestured vaguely, unwilling to reveal the Geass yet. Resources and abilities you've only glimpsed. Together, we could accomplish what neither of us could alone. Sasuke was silent for a long moment, his Sharingan reading Naruto's body language for deception. And Sakura? What about our team? Sakura chose the village. Naruto's voice softened slightly, a calculated display of emotion to appear more human. She believes in the system, believes it can be reformed from within. I respect that, even if I know she's wrong. But she's made her choice, just as you must make yours. The Uchiha's hand left his sword hilt. I'm not joining you, Naruto. Not yet. But I'm not dragging you back either. Consider this a courtesy for what we used to be. The next time we meet, if you've attacked the Leaf, I will kill you. Fair enough. Naruto inclined his head. And Sasuke? When you finally realize the truth about this world, when the village's hypocrisy becomes too much to bear, you'll know where to find me. Sasuke vanished in a swirl of leaves, and Naruto allowed himself a genuine smile. That conversation had gone exactly as planned. Seeds of doubt planted, the relationship preserved for future exploitation, and no unnecessary violence. Sasuke would come around eventually. His strategic mind calculated a 73% probability within the next year. The game was progressing nicely. The Order of the Fox grew slowly at first, recruiting from the margins of shinobi society, missing nin who'd fled unjust persecution, civilians tired of being collateral damage in shinobi conflicts, former Anbu who'd seen too much darkness in their village's operations. Each recruit was carefully vetted through a combination of intelligence gathering and, when necessary, strategic Geass usage. Naruto's second-in-command was a woman named Kira, a former Mist Anbu who deserted after being ordered to execute civilians suspected of harboring rebels. She was efficient, ruthless, and utterly loyal, after Naruto had saved her from a hunter nin squad using a combination of shadow clones and tactical brilliance that left the hunters unconscious and questioning their life choices. "We have 23 members now," Kira reported as they stood in the Order's new headquarters, a network of caves in the neutral mountains that Naruto had fortified with seals and traps. Mostly Chunin-level fighters, a few Jonin, 3 sensor types, 2 medics. Not enough to challenge a major village, but enough to make noise. "We're not ready to challenge the villages directly." Naruto studied the map spread across his war table, marked with pins representing shinobi movements, political tensions, potential recruits. His strategic mind saw patterns others missed, connections between seemingly unrelated events. "We need to demonstrate that the system itself is vulnerable, show the world that the 5 great nations aren't invincible, create doubt, uncertainty, fear." "Terrorism?" Kira's voice was neutral, but Naruto caught the slight tension in her posture. "Theater," he corrected with a slight smile. "Carefully orchestrated demonstrations of the system's weakness. We hit supply lines, rescue victims of shinobi violence, expose corruption in village governments. Each action calculated to build our reputation and undermine theirs. We become the alternative, the option people turn to when the villages fail them. That's a long-term strategy, the only kind worth pursuing." Naruto's finger traced a route on the map. "There's a slave trading operation running through Rice Country. Former shinobi turned criminals, selling children to nobles in Earth Country. The local daimyo knows but does nothing. Some of those nobles are his allies. This is our next target." Kira's eyes gleamed. "You want to free the slaves?" "I want to destroy the operation completely." Naruto's voice dropped to that cold, calculating tone that made even his followers nervous. "Every slaver dead or imprisoned, every slave freed and given the choice to join us or receive safe passage home. The operation's financial records seized and distributed to every major news outlet in the continent, and a message left at the scene. Kitsune was here. When do we move?" 3 days. I need time to gather intelligence and plan the operation perfectly." His strategic mind was already working through contingencies, backup plans, alternative routes. "Send our scouts to Rice Country. I want hourly reports on the slavers' movements, their security, their schedule. This operation must be flawless." Kira bowed and left to carry out his orders. Naruto returned his attention to the map, his Geass eye hidden behind his mask even though he was alone. The power had become both his greatest weapon and his deepest secret. Only 5 people had felt its absolute compulsion so far. Danzo, 2 root agents who tried to assassinate him, a merchant who'd witnessed a battle and needed to forget, and a village elder who'd been about to expose one of his safe houses. 5 people, 5 permanent commands, 1 eye that could reshape reality itself. He would need to use it carefully. Each usage was precious, irreplaceable. But when deployed with perfect timing, the Geass could achieve what 1,000 ninja could not. The slave raid would be his declaration to the world. The moment when Kitsune stopped being a rumor and became a movement, the slave compound burned with beautiful precision. Naruto had planned the assault down to the second, coordinating his 23 order members through hand signals and prearranged strategies. The slavers never stood a chance. Teams of 3 struck simultaneously at 5 entry points, overwhelming the guards with superior tactics and ruthless efficiency. Wind style, vacuum wave. Naruto's jutsu cut through the compound's front gate, the compressed air blade shearing metal like paper. His shadow clones poured through the opening, each one a perfect copy, executing their assigned role. Some engaged the slaver guards in close combat. Others moved to secure the prisoner cells. Still others planted explosive tags on key structural supports. A slaver jonin emerged from the main building, his hands already forming seals. Water style, water dragon jutsu. The massive serpent of compressed water roared toward Naruto with lethal force. But Naruto's strategic mind had anticipated this. He'd identified the compound's 3 jonin-level guards in his pre-assault intelligence gathering and positioned himself to draw them out. Shadow clone jutsu. 5 clones formed a defensive wall, taking the water dragon's impact while Naruto circled left. His original body emerged from the spray, Rasengan already spinning in his palm. The slaver jonin tried to dodge, but Naruto's tactical positioning had left him no escape route. The Rasengan caught him in the chest, the spiraling chakra tearing through his defenses and slamming him into the compound wall. He didn't get up. Target 1 neutralized, Naruto said calmly into his communication earpiece, a civilian technology he'd adapted for shinobi use. Teams 2 and 3 report. Team 2 has secured the eastern prisoner block. Kira's voice crackled back. 37 slaves freed, no casualties. Team 3 engaged the second Jonin, another voice reported. He's down, moving to secure the financial records. Perfect. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. A scream echoed from the north wing, and Naruto's head snapped toward the sound. That wasn't part of the plan. His tactical mind raced through possibilities. A guard they'd missed, a prisoner being used as a hostage, a trap. He moved instantly, his body a blur of speed. The north wing's corridor was chaos. A slaver Chunin had grabbed a young girl, maybe 7 years old, and held a kunai to her throat. "Back off!" the slaver shouted, his voice cracking with fear. "Back off or I'll kill her!" Naruto's 2 order members had their weapons raised but hesitated, unwilling to risk the child. The slaver was backing toward a window, clearly planning to escape with his hostage. This required precision. Naruto stepped forward, raising his hands in a gesture of apparent surrender. His mask concealed his expression, his voice carefully modulated to sound calm and reasonable. "You're surrounded. There's nowhere to run. Let the girl go and you'll live. Harm her and—" "Shut up!" The kunai pressed closer to the girl's throat, drawing a thin line of blood. "I'm leaving, and you're going to let me, or this brat dies!" "Look at me," Naruto said softly. The slaver's eyes met Naruto's through the mask's eye holes, and in that instant, Naruto revealed his Geass. The red bird-shaped sigil blazed with crimson light. "I, Naruto Uzumaki, command you, release the girl, drop your weapons, and surrender peacefully." The effect was instantaneous and absolute. The slaver's hand opened, the kunai clattering to the floor. He released the girl, who ran to Naruto's waiting arms. The slaver stood docile and compliant as Naruto's order members secured him with ninja wire. "What did you do to him?" one of Naruto's followers asked, staring at the suddenly passive prisoner. "I persuaded him." Naruto's voice carried a hint of dark amusement. "Now secure the compound. I want every slaver alive brought to the central courtyard. The dead can be left where they fell." 20 minutes later, the operation was complete. The compound's 3 buildings burned with controlled fires set by explosive tags. 37 freed slaves huddled together under the protection of order members who offered them water and blankets. And in the central courtyard, 15 captured slavers knelt in a line, their hands bound, their faces showing varying degrees of fear and defiance. Naruto stood before them, his white fox mask catching the firelight, his presence commanding absolute attention. The freed slaves watched from a safe distance, their eyes wide with a mixture of hope and residual terror. "Gentlemen slavers," Naruto began, his voice amplified by chakra to reach everyone present. "You have committed crimes against humanity itself. You have bought and sold children, destroyed families, profited from suffering. The shinobi villages knew of your operations and did nothing. Because you paid taxes to the daimyo, because you had political connections, because the system protects those with power and wealth." He walked slowly along the line of prisoners, his masked face turning to regard each one. "That system ends tonight. I am Kitsune, and I declare that your crimes will no longer be tolerated. You will face justice, not the corrupt justice of bought officials and political favors, but true justice." One of the slavers, a scarred man who'd been the operation's second in command, spat at Naruto's feet. "You're no different from us, you hypocrite. You're just another killer hiding behind a mask. The villages will hunt you down and—" "Look at me," Naruto interrupted. The scarred slaver's eyes met Naruto's Geass and the red sigil flared. "I, Naruto Uzumaki, command you. Tell everyone the complete truth about your operation. Every crime, every victim, every official you bribed. Speak." The slaver's mouth opened, and words poured out in a torrent of confession. Names, dates, locations, payments, everything. The other slavers stared in horror as their second in command betrayed every secret, his voice mechanical and unstoppable. When the confession ended, Naruto turned to address the freed slaves. "You have a choice now. You are free, truly free. My organization will provide you with money and safe passage to return to your homes if you wish. Or if you have no home to return to, you may join the Order of the Fox. We fight against the system that allowed your suffering. We build a better world. A teenage boy stepped forward from the group of freed slaves, his fists clenched. I'll join. I want to fight. I want to make them pay. Then you will be trained, Naruto promised. Not for revenge. Revenge is wasteful and undirected, but for justice. For a world where what happened to you can never happen again. 5 more stepped forward. Then 3 more. By the end, 12 of the freed slaves had chosen to join the order. The rest accepted the offer of safe passage, and Naruto assigned escorts to see them safely home. As for the slavers themselves, Naruto made a decision that would define his revolution. He didn't execute them. That would make him no better than the system he opposed. Instead, he used his remaining Geass charge for the operation on the slaver leader, commanding him to turn himself and all his accomplices in to the nearest authorities and confess everything. The others were bound and left with the evidence of their crimes, to be found by local law enforcement. The financial records were distributed to news outlets across the continent, along with a letter signed by Kitsune explaining exactly what had happened and why. When the Order of the Fox vanished into the night, the slave compound was nothing but smoldering ruins and freed prisoners. But the legend of Kitsune had been cemented. The masked revolutionary who freed the oppressed and challenged the system itself. News of the raid spread across the shinobi world within days. Some called Kitsune a hero, others called him a terrorist. The 5 great nations issued a joint statement declaring the Order of the Fox a rogue organization to be hunted and destroyed. Naruto read the statement in his mountain headquarters and smiled behind his mask. They'd noticed him. Good. That meant the game was truly beginning. Hinata Hyuga found him 3 weeks after the slave compound raid. Naruto sensed her chakra signature approaching his position. He was scouting a potential recruitment target in a small village on the Fire Country border and considered his options. Hinata had been his friend once, perhaps his closest friend, despite his former self's obliviousness to her feelings. But that was before his transformation, before the Geass, before everything changed. He could evade her, disappear into the forest and leave her searching. But his strategic mind calculated that such an action would be wasteful. Hinata's Byakugan made her an exceptional tracker, and her gentle nature made her potentially valuable. Better to confront this situation directly and turn it to his advantage. She found him sitting on a boulder overlooking a valley, his mask resting beside him, his expression contemplative as he watched the sunset. He didn't turn as she approached, didn't acknowledge her presence until she spoke. Naruto. Her voice was soft but carried an undercurrent of determination he'd never heard before. I've been looking for you for 3 weeks. Please, we need to talk. We have nothing to discuss, Hinata. His voice was different from the boy she remembered, colder, more controlled. I'm a missing nin now. Talking to me could be considered treason. I don't care. She moved to stand beside the boulder, her Byakugan active, reading his chakra flow. What happened to you? You killed Danzo, you were banished, and now you're leading some kind of revolutionary group? This isn't you, Naruto. It is me. He finally turned to look at her, and she flinched at the coldness in his blue eyes. The real me. The version that finally understands how the world actually works. Tell me, Hinata, did they send you to bring me back? Is this a mission? No. She shook her head firmly. I came on my own. I told Lady Tsunade I was taking a personal leave, but I didn't tell her why. No one knows I'm here. Interesting. Naruto's strategic mind analyzed this new information. Hinata had defied the village to seek him out personally, without orders, without backup. That suggested emotional motivation rather than duty. Useful. Why? He asked simply. Because she hesitated, her cheeks coloring slightly. Because I care about you. Because I've always cared about you, even when you didn't notice. And I can't just let you walk this dark path alone. I'm not alone. Naruto gestured vaguely toward the mountains where his order waited. I have followers, allies, people who share my vision for a better world. But do you have friends? Her question was quiet but penetrating. Do you have anyone who cares about you, not your cause? Anyone who sees Naruto, not Kitsune? The question struck deeper than Naruto wanted to admit. His strategic mind recognized the emotional manipulation, intentional or not, but couldn't entirely dismiss it. He'd been lonely, isolated by his transformation, by the burden of his revolutionary path. Having someone who knew him before, who remembered the boy he'd been, that was dangerous. Emotions were weaknesses to be exploited or eliminated. But they were also tools for binding loyalty, for creating connections that transcended mere strategic value. "What do you want, Hinata?" His voice softened slightly, a calculated display of vulnerability. "Why did you really come here?" "I want to understand." She sat down on the boulder beside him, her body language open and non-threatening. "I want to know what changed you, what made you into this person, and I want to help if I can, if you'll let me." Naruto was silent for a long moment, weighing his options. He could lie, manipulate her, send her away with false reassurances. He could use his Geass to make her forget this conversation entirely. Or he could do something his former self would never have considered. Tell her the truth. "They feared me," he said finally. "The village, the council, the Hokage. They looked at me and saw a weapon they couldn't fully control. Danzo exploited that fear, fabricated evidence of treason, and convinced them I was a threat. When I stood in that council chamber, I realized something. The system doesn't protect people like us. It uses us and discards us when we become inconvenient." He met her eyes directly. "I awakened something that day. A power that let me see the truth clearly for the first time. Danzo tried to destroy me, so I destroyed him first, and in doing so I proved the village's fears correct. I became what they always thought I was, dangerous." "But you're not," Hinata insisted. "You freed those slaves. You're fighting against corruption. That's not evil, Naruto. That's necessary evil," he corrected gently. "I've killed people, Hinata. Slavers, corrupt officials, anyone who stood between me and my goals. I'll kill more before this is over. The path I'm walking leads to war, a war that will reshape the entire shinobi world. Can you accept that? Can you follow someone who's willing to sacrifice anything, including himself, to achieve his vision?" She was quiet for a moment, her Byakugan reading the truth in his chakra, seeing the conviction that burned in his core. Then she nodded slowly. "I can," she whispered, "because I believe in you. Because I know that underneath all this coldness, all this strategy, you still care about people. You still want to protect them. You've just realized that protecting people sometimes means fighting the systems that hurt them." Naruto felt something twist in his chest, an emotion he thought he'd successfully suppressed. Hope, perhaps, or relief at not being entirely alone in his truth. It was dangerous, allowing himself to feel this, but it was also necessary. Revolutionary leaders needed true believers, people who followed out of genuine conviction rather than fear or compulsion. "If you join the order," he said carefully, "there's no going back. The village will consider you a traitor. Your family will disown you. You'll be hunted, possibly killed. Everything you were will be destroyed. Everything I was led me here." Hinata's voice was stronger now, more certain. "My family already sees me as weak, as a failure. The village values the Byakugan more than it values me. But you always saw me, Naruto, even when I was invisible to everyone else. I'll follow you, wherever this path leads." It was a declaration of loyalty that Naruto's strategic mind immediately recognized as invaluable. Hinata's Byakugan made her an exceptional scout and tracker. Her gentle fist style, properly applied, could be devastating in combat. And her unwavering devotion would make her absolutely trustworthy in ways that Geass-compelled loyalty never could be. But more than that, and this was what Naruto found himself reluctant to admit, having Hinata with him felt right in a way that transcended strategy. She was a connection to his past, to the person he'd been before the transformation, a reminder that underneath the cold calculation and ruthless pragmatism, there was still something human. "Then welcome to the Order of the Fox," Naruto said, offering her his hand. "But understand, I'm not the person you remember. That Naruto is gone. I'm something different now, something necessary." Hinata took his hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "I know, but I'll follow you anyway, because I believe that even if you've changed, your heart is still the same. You still want to protect people. You've just realized that protection requires strength." She was wrong, of course. His heart had fundamentally changed when the Geass awakened. But Naruto didn't correct her. Let her believe what she needed to believe. Her faith would make her a more effective follower, and that was what mattered. "Come on," he said, standing and donning his fox mask. "I'll introduce you to the others. Your training begins tomorrow." As they walked toward the mountain headquarters, Naruto allowed himself a moment of genuine feeling. Having Hinata at his side was dangerous. It created a vulnerability his enemies could exploit. But it also felt like a small victory against the loneliness that had consumed him since his banishment. The game was becoming more complex. More pieces were entering play. And Naruto's strategic mind was already calculating how to use each one to maximum effect. The attack on the Hidden Mist weapons depot was meant to be a surgical strike. Get in, steal what they needed, get out. Naruto had planned it meticulously, accounting for guard rotations, sensor barriers, and backup response times. His 27 order members, now including Hinata and the freed slaves who'd completed their training, were positioned perfectly to execute the operation. Everything went wrong in the first 30 seconds. Ambush! Kira's voice screamed through the communications network as Hunter Nin appeared from seemingly nowhere, surrounding the Order's advance team. "It's a trap! They knew we were coming." Naruto's strategic mind raced through possibilities. A spy in his organization, intercepted communications, predicted strategy. No time to analyze, he needed to adapt immediately. "All teams, combat formation Delta." His voice cut through the chaos with absolute authority. "Hinata, I need eyes. How many enemy combatants?" "Byakugan." Hinata's voice was calm despite the situation, her training kicking in. 43 hostiles, Jonin level or higher. They're trying to encircle us. Northwest Quadrant is the weakest point, only 7 guards. All teams converge on Northwest Quadrant. We're breaking through. Naruto's hands were already forming seals. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 100 clones materialized instantly, far more than he usually created, drawing deeply on the Nine Tails of chakra. Each clone knew exactly what to do: create chaos, divide enemy attention, cover the retreat. The Mist Hunter Nin weren't prepared for the sudden flood of shadow clones. Naruto's tactical positioning turned what should have been an encirclement into confusion. His clones engaged the enemy with devastating efficiency, calling out jutsu after jutsu. Rasengan, Wind Style, Vacuum Sphere, Shadow Shuriken Jutsu. But the Hunter Nin were skilled and numerous. Naruto watched through his clones' line eyes as 3 of his order members fell to coordinated attacks. The rage he felt was carefully controlled, channeled into colder calculation, acceptable losses. The mission had failed, but he could still extract his people. "Kira, lead the retreat." His command was absolute. "I'll cover you." "But that's an order." Naruto's voice brooked no argument. His strategic mind had already calculated that he was the only one with sufficient power to hold off 43 Jonin-level opponents long enough for his people to escape. "Move." The Order began their withdrawal, fighting a running battle toward the Northwest Quadrant. Naruto stood at the rear, his mask gleaming in the moonlight, his chakra blazing like a beacon. 20 of his shadow clones formed a defensive perimeter while he engaged the Hunter 9 captain, a massive man wielding a sword as tall as Naruto. "You must be Kitsune," the captain growled, his sword already swinging in a devastating arc. "The Mizukage sends her regards." Naruto dodged, his enhanced reflexes making the movement seem effortless. "Tell your Mizukage that her trap failed. My people are escaping even as we speak." "But you're not." The captain's next strike was faster, enhanced by water-style chakra that made the blade seem to flow like liquid. "I was ordered to bring you in alive, but I'll settle for your corpse." This required something special. Naruto's strategic mind made a split-second decision. He couldn't waste a Geass charge on a simple escape, that would be inefficient. But he could use the Nine Tails' power more freely than ever before. His chakra shifted, taking on a red, malevolent hue as he drew on the Demon Fox's reserves. The Hunter 9 captain's eyes widened in recognition and fear. "Impossible," the captain breathed. "You're the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, but you're supposed to be in Konoha." "I left." Naruto's voice was calm despite the raw power coursing through him. "And I took my power with me. Rasengan!" But this wasn't a normal Rasengan. Enhanced by the Nine Tails chakra, the spiraling sphere had grown to the size of a boulder, its surface roiling with crimson energy. The captain tried to dodge, but Naruto's tactical positioning had left him nowhere to run. The enhanced Rasengan struck the captain dead center, the impact creating a crater 10 meters wide and sending the man flying into a building hard enough to collapse it. The other Hunter 9 hesitated, suddenly uncertain about engaging an opponent who could channel tailed beast chakra so freely. Naruto used that hesitation to escape, his shadow clones covering his retreat with a barrage of attacks that kept the Hunter Nin suppressed. He caught up with his order members at the rendezvous point 3 kilometers from the weapons depot, his breathing slightly labored from the massive chakra expenditure. Everyone present? His tactical mind was already counting heads, assessing injuries. 24 accounted for, Kira reported grimly. 3 confirmed dead, 4 seriously injured. The mission was a complete failure. The mission was a learning experience. Naruto's voice was cold but controlled. Someone betrayed us. Either we have a spy or our security protocols are insufficient. We'll analyze what went wrong and adapt. But first we need to move. The Hunter 9 will pursue. They fled into the night, carrying their wounded, leaving their dead behind. It was the first major setback for the Order of the Fox, and Naruto felt its weight like a physical burden. Later, in a safe house 20 kilometers from the ambush site, Naruto gathered his lieutenants for analysis. Hinata, Kira, and 3 others sat around a table while Naruto paced, his strategic mind dissecting the operation piece by piece. The trap was too perfect, he said, his voice clinical. They knew our timing, our approach vector, our team composition. That level of intelligence suggests either a spy or intercepted communications. Or predicted strategy, Hinata offered quietly. Your tactics are becoming known, Naruto. You favor surgical strikes, minimal casualties, specific targeting. An intelligent enemy could predict your approach. Naruto stopped pacing, struck by the insight. Hinata was right. He'd been too predictable, too consistent in his methods. The same strategic brilliance that made his operations successful also made them anticipatable. A pattern was emerging in his tactics, and his enemies had learned to exploit it. Then we adapt, he declared. From now on, every operation includes multiple false targets and misdirection. We randomize our approach vectors and timing. We feed false intelligence through unsecured channels to confuse enemy analysis. And most importantly, we become unpredictable. That's easier said than done, Kira noted. Unpredictability often means inefficiency, not if it's calculated unpredictability. Naruto's smile was sharp. We make them think we're being random when we're actually following a deeper strategy they can't perceive. Randomness as a tactical choice, not a failure of planning. The discussion continued late into the night, refining strategies, analyzing failures, planning for the future. But through it all, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. The Mist Village had taken him seriously enough to set an elaborate trap. Other villages would do the same. The period of easy victories was over. The real war was beginning. 6 months passed in a blur of operations, victories, and calculated risks. The Order of the Fox grew to 73 members, including several Chunin-level fighters from various villages who defected after witnessing the system's corruption firsthand. Naruto's reputation grew with each successful mission, each freed prisoner, each corrupt official exposed. But it was the personal moments between operations that defined this period for Naruto. Specifically, his evolving relationship with Hinata. She'd proven herself invaluable in combat, her Byakugan and gentle fist style making her one of the Order's most effective fighters. But more than that, she'd become his confidant, the one person he could speak to without maintaining the cold mask of revolutionary leadership. They sat together on the roof of their current headquarters, an abandoned temple in the mountains between Rain and Earth Country, watching the stars. Naruto had removed his fox mask, his face relaxed in a way it never was around the other Order members. "Do you ever regret it?" Hinata asked softly. "Leaving the village, starting this war?" "Every day." Naruto's honesty surprised even himself. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret the deaths, the suffering, the destruction. But I don't regret the choice itself. The system was broken, Hinata. It needed to be challenged. Even if it costs everything, especially then." He turned to look at her, his blue eyes reflecting starlight. "The only ones who should kill are those prepared to be killed. I accepted that burden when I took this path. If I die achieving my goal, that's an acceptable price. I won't let you die." Hinata's voice was fierce, more passionate than he'd ever heard it. "I'll protect you, Naruto, no matter what." "You can't promise that." His tone was gentle but firm. "This path leads to confrontations with the 5 great nations themselves. When that happens, and it will, people will die. Good people. Maybe even you. Then I'll die protecting what I believe in." She met his eyes without flinching. "I used to be weak, Naruto. I used to hide from confrontation, to accept my family's judgment that I was worthless. But you showed me that strength isn't about power, it's about conviction. You have the courage to challenge the entire world because you believe in something greater than yourself. That's the kind of strength I want." Naruto felt something crack in the ice around his heart. Hinata's devotion was absolute, but it wasn't blind. She understood the cost of his path, accepted the darkness of his methods, and chose to follow anyway. That made her loyalty more valuable than any Geass compulsion. "You're not weak," he said quietly. "You never were. You just needed to find something worth fighting for." "I found you." The words were simple, honest, devastating in their sincerity. Naruto reached out and took her hand, a gesture that would have been unthinkable for his cold, calculating persona. But with Hinata, he could afford moments of genuine emotion. She'd earned that much. "When this is over," he said, surprising himself with the admission, "when the system has been torn down and rebuilt into something better, maybe we can be normal. Maybe we can just be Naruto and Hinata, without the war, without the revolution. I'd like that." Hinata's smile was soft and sad. "But I don't think this war will ever truly be over. There will always be another fight, another injustice, another threat to everything you're building." She was right, of course. Naruto's strategic mind understood that revolution was never finished. It was an ongoing process of challenging and reshaping systems of power. But it was nice to pretend for a moment that peace was possible. They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, watching the stars and stealing a few hours of peace before the next operation, the next battle, the next step in Naruto's grand design. Naruto's feelings for Hinata had evolved beyond mere strategic value. She'd become genuinely important to him, not as a tool or an asset, but as a person. That made her both his greatest strength and his most dangerous vulnerability. He would protect her for as long as he could. But his strategic mind understood the cruel mathematics of revolution. Eventually, everyone paid the price. The turning point came in the form of an opportunity too perfect to ignore. Intelligence reports indicated that representatives from all 5 great nations would be meeting in the neutral Iron Country to discuss the Kitsune problem. The summit was meant to coordinate a joint response to the Order of the Fox, to pool resources and intelligence to hunt down Naruto and his followers. It was also the perfect target for a devastating strike. "This is suicide," Kira said flatly when Naruto presented his plan. "Security will be overwhelming. Elite jonin from every village, samurai guards, sensor barriers, the works. We can't possibly. We're not attacking the summit directly." Naruto's finger traced routes on the map spread before them. "That would be suicide, as you noted. Instead, we're going to do something they won't expect. We're going to make them chase us." He explained his strategy in detail, and even Kira, who'd seen Naruto's tactical brilliance countless times, was impressed by the audacity. The plan called for simultaneous strikes on 5 targets across the continent, each one designed to draw resources away from the summit. While the great nations scrambled to respond to multiple crises, Naruto would infiltrate the summit itself, not to attack, but to steal intelligence. "You want to walk into a room full of the most powerful shinobi in the world and just take their strategic plans?" Hinata's voice carried disbelief and concern. "With the right disguise and the right timing, yes." Naruto's confidence was absolute. "I'll use a transformation jutsu to appear as a low-ranking aide. While they're distracted by the simultaneous attacks, I'll copy their documents and disappear. By the time they realize the attacks were a diversion, I'll have every secret they discussed. And if you're discovered," Hinata pressed, "then I use the Geass." Naruto's voice was cold. "One command to a key figure, create chaos and escape in the confusion. I've planned 17 different exit strategies depending on which point of the operation is compromised. Trust me, this will work." The preparation took 2 weeks. Naruto drilled his teams relentlessly on their assigned diversionary attacks, ensuring each one would be dramatic enough to demand immediate response, but not so dangerous that civilian casualties would be excessive. He practiced his transformation jutsu until he could maintain it for hours without wavering. And he memorized every detail of the summit location, every guard rotation, every possible complication. The night of the operation, Naruto stood before his assembled order members in his kitsune mask, his presence commanding absolute attention. "Tonight, we demonstrate that the Order of the Fox cannot be intimidated or contained," he declared, his voice resonant with authority. "While the great nations conspire against us, we will show them that their power has limits, that their coordination is meaningless against properly applied strategy. Each of you has your assignments. Execute them perfectly, and tomorrow the world will know our strength." "For the Order," Kira's voice rang out, and the assembled members echoed it. "For the Fox," they shouted in unison. Naruto allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They believed in him, in his vision, in his leadership. That belief made them powerful beyond their individual abilities. "Move out," he commanded. The teams dispersed to their targets, while Naruto prepared for the most dangerous part of his plan, infiltrating the Five Cog Summit. The transformation jutsu was perfect. Naruto had studied the mannerisms and appearance of a Cloud Village aide so thoroughly that even the aide's own colleagues wouldn't spot the deception. He moved through the summit building with practiced confidence, carrying a stack of documents that gave him an excuse to be anywhere. The summit itself was being held in the Iron Country's largest fortress, a massive structure of stone and steel that radiated defensive capability. Samurai guards patrolled every corridor, and sensor-type ninja monitored for unauthorized chakra signatures. It was exactly as impenetrable as Naruto had expected, which was why he'd planned for it. His first objective was the intelligence room, a secure chamber where the various villages' strategic documents were being compiled. Getting there required passing through 3 security checkpoints, each one requiring proper identification and authorization. Naruto approached the first checkpoint with his borrowed face and forged credentials. The samurai guard studied the documents carefully, then waved him through. One down. The second checkpoint was more thorough. A sensor-type ninja scanned him with chakra detection techniques, looking for transformation jutsu or genjutsu. But Naruto had prepared for this. He'd used a complex chakra suppression seal that made his signature read as entirely normal for the person he was impersonating. The sensor nodded and let him pass. The third checkpoint should have been the final obstacle. A combination of samurai guards and a high-ranking jonin who personally verified every person entering the intelligence room. But as Naruto approached, alarms began blaring throughout the fortress. Perfect timing. The diversionary attacks had begun. The jonin at the checkpoint barked orders into a communication device, then turned to the gathered aides. "Everyone stays here until we verify there's no internal threat. No one enters or leaves this corridor." Naruto's strategic mind adapted instantly. This wasn't part of the plan, but it wasn't a disaster either. He simply needed to create an opening. "Sir," Naruto said in his disguised voice, "I have urgent documents that need to be secured in the intelligence room before the alarm situation is resolved. Standing in this corridor leaves them vulnerable to—" "I said no one moves." The jonin's hand went to his weapon. "That includes you, aide." Time for a different approach. Naruto let his transformation drop just enough to reveal his left eye, the one containing the Geass, while maintaining the rest of his disguise. The jonin's eyes widened in shock. "Look at me," Naruto commanded softly. The jonin's gaze met Naruto's guess eye, and the red bird-shaped sigil blazed. "I, Naruto Uzumaki, command you. Allow me to access the intelligence room without question or alarm, then forget you ever saw me." The jonin's expression went blank, then cleared. "Of course. Right this way." He opened the door to the intelligence room, gestured Naruto inside, then returned to his post with no memory of the interaction. The intelligence room was exactly what Naruto had hoped for. A treasure trove of strategic documents, tactical assessments, and coordination plans from all 5 great nations. He had perhaps 5 minutes before the diversionary attacks were resolved, and people started asking questions about the alarm. His hands moved with practiced efficiency. creating shadow clones that began copying documents at incredible speed. Each clone memorized pages of text and diagrams, their perfect recall ensuring nothing was lost. Within 3 minutes, Naruto had absorbed the complete strategic plans of the 5 great nations' joint response to the Order of the Fox. It was devastating information. They planned to declare the Order an international terrorist organization, pool bounty hunter resources, and launch coordinated strikes on known Order safe houses. They'd identified 3 of Naruto's 7 headquarters, compromised 2 of his supply lines, and had intelligence on 15 of his 73 members. But now, Naruto had their plans, which meant he could counter them before they ever launched. He heard footsteps approaching the intelligence room. His time was up. Naruto reformed his disguise, grabbed a random stack of documents to maintain his cover, and exited just as a Cloud Village Jonin arrived, looking flustered. "Status?" the Jonin demanded. "All documents secure, sir," Naruto replied in his disguised voice. "I was verifying the seal integrity when the alarm sounded." The Jonin nodded absently, already moving past to check the room himself. Naruto walked calmly down the corridor, past the security checkpoints, which were now focused on responding to the alarm rather than monitoring exits, and out of the fortress entirely. He was 3 kilometers away when the real Cloud Village aide was found unconscious in a storage closet, and the fortress erupted into chaos, trying to figure out who had impersonated him. By then, Naruto was long gone. His teams were successfully extracting from their diversionary attacks, and the Order of the Fox had struck a devastating blow against the great nation's coordination without firing a single shot inside the summit. The debriefing back at headquarters was triumphant. All 5 diversionary teams had succeeded in their missions with 0 casualties. Naruto's intelligence heist had exceeded every expectation. The Order had demonstrated that even the combined might of the 5 great nations couldn't protect their secrets from a sufficiently brilliant strategy. "This changes everything," Kira said, studying the copied intelligence documents. "With this information, we can stay 3 steps ahead of their coordination efforts. We can evacuate compromised safe houses before they're raided, redirect supply lines they think they've cut, protect our identified members. More than that," Naruto added, his strategic mind already working through implications, "we can feed them false intelligence through the channels they think are secure, make them waste resources on phantom targets while we strike where they're not looking, turn their own coordination against them." The celebration lasted late into the night, and for once, Naruto allowed himself to enjoy it. His people had earned this victory, and their morale was sky high. Hinata found him later on the headquarters roof, his usual contemplative spot. She sat beside him without speaking, simply sharing his space in comfortable silence. "You did it," she said finally. "You walked into the most secure location in the shinobi world and stole their secrets. That's incredible. It was necessary." But Naruto allowed himself a small smile. Though I'll admit, there was a certain satisfaction in proving that even their best defenses can't stop someone with the right plan. "Is that what this is about?" Hinata's voice was soft but probing. "Proving something? Showing them that you're smarter than they are?" "No." Naruto's smile faded. "It's about survival. The Order is growing, but we're still vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Our only advantage is superior intelligence and strategy. If I can't outthink the great nations, we lose. Simple as that. You won't lose." Hinata's confidence was absolute. "You're the most brilliant person I've ever met, Naruto. And you have something they don't. People who truly believe in you. Not out of fear or obligation, but because you've shown us a better way." Naruto wanted to tell her that belief wasn't enough, that conviction didn't stop kunai or defeat superior numbers. But looking at her face, seeing the absolute faith in her eyes, he found himself unable to crush that hope. "Thank you," he said instead, "for believing in me, for following me even when the path gets dark. Always." Her hand found his. "Wherever this leads, I'll be with you." It was a promise that made Naruto's chest tighten with an emotion he thought he'd killed, genuine affection. Hinata had become more than a follower, more than a strategic asset. She'd become someone he cared about protecting, not because she was useful, but because she mattered. That was dangerous. Caring created vulnerabilities, But it also created something worth fighting for beyond abstract ideals. "Hinata," he said, surprising himself, "when this war is over, when the system has been changed and the world is different, will you stay with me?" "Of course." Her answer was immediate and certain. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be." They sat together under the stars, stealing another moment of peace before the storm that was surely coming. Because Naruto's strategic mind understood what his heart wanted to deny. Their victory tonight had made the Order a priority target. The great nations would escalate their response. The real war was about to begin, and not everyone would survive it. The retaliation came faster than even Naruto anticipated. 3 days after the summit infiltration, joint forces from the Leaf and Cloud villages launched a coordinated assault on 2 of the Order's safe houses. The attacks were precise, overwhelming, and devastating. 17 Order members died in the first assault, 23 in the second. The survivors fled with whatever they could carry, their safe havens reduced to rubble. Naruto received the news in his main headquarters and felt cold fury settle over him like a mantle. This was personal now. The great nations weren't just opposing his revolution. They were trying to exterminate his people. "We need to respond," Kira said, her voice tight with barely controlled rage. "If we don't hit back hard, we look weak. Members will desert, recruitment will dry up. We'll respond." Naruto's voice was ice, but not with blind revenge. "We hit them where it hurts most, their legitimacy." He explained his plan, and even his most loyal followers looked uncertain. What Naruto proposed wasn't just a military operation. It was a direct challenge to the fundamental structure of the shinobi world. He was going to expose the truth about the Uchiha massacre. Naruto had stolen documents during the summit infiltration that confirmed what he'd long suspected. The Leaf Village's leadership had ordered the Uchiha clan's destruction, using Itachi as their weapon. Danzo had orchestrated it, the third Hokage had allowed it, and the entire village had covered it up. "If we release this information," Naruto explained to his gathered lieutenants, "it destroys the Leaf's moral authority. They can't claim to be righteous protectors while they secretly genocide their own citizens. Every alliance they have becomes questionable. Every statement they make about justice becomes hypocrisy. It will also make them desperate," Hinata warned. "Desperate enemies are dangerous. Then we'll be ready." Naruto's strategic mind was already working through contingencies. "We release the information through every news outlet on the continent simultaneously. Include the original orders signed by village leadership. Include testimony from survivors. I'll use the Geass to compel a root agent to confess everything publicly. Make it irrefutable. And when the Leaf comes for us with everything they have," Kira pressed, "we fight." Naruto's voice was absolute. "This is the war we've been preparing for. The moment when the Order of the Fox stops being a nuisance and becomes an existential threat to the established order. We've been building toward this since the beginning." The preparation took a week. Naruto compiled the evidence meticulously, cross-referenced every document, ensured the chain of authenticity was unbreakable. He captured a root agent using a combination of tactical brilliance and overwhelming force, then used his Geass to command the agent to testify truthfully about the Uchiha massacre in front of journalists from every major nation. The testimony was damning. The root agent, compelled to absolute honesty, described in clinical detail how the Leaf Village leadership had feared a coup by the Uchiha clan and decided that genocide was preferable to negotiation. How Itachi had been manipulated into slaughtering his own family. How Danzo had orchestrated the entire conspiracy with the third Hokage's tacit approval. When the story broke, the shinobi world exploded. Protests erupted in the Leaf Village. Allied nations demanded actions. The Uchiha massacre, previously justified as Itachi's independent madness, was revealed as state-sponsored genocide. Tsunade's government was thrown into crisis as citizens demanded accountability. And in the chaos, the Order of the Fox became something it had never been before: legitimate. Recruitment surged. Disillusioned ninja from multiple villages defected to join Naruto's cause. Civilians who'd previously seen the Order as terrorists now viewed them as truth-tellers willing to expose systemic corruption. Within 2 weeks, the Order's membership doubled to 146 fighters, with more arriving daily. But the backlash was equally severe. The Leaf Village declared total war on the Order of the Fox. Not a police action, not a containment mission, actual war. They mobilized their full military capacity and called in allied forces from Sand and Mist villages. A joint army of over 300 elite shinobi was assembled with a single purpose: destroy Naruto Uzumaki and everyone who followed him. "They're coming," Hinata reported, her Byakugan scanning the approaching army from the headquarters' highest tower. 327 shinobi, 40 kilometers out and closing, Jonin level or higher. "This isn't a raid, Naruto. This is an extermination force." Naruto stood at the war table in the headquarters command center, studying the tactical map with cold calculation. His strategic mind had anticipated this response, had in fact planned for it. The question was whether his preparations were sufficient. "All members to defensive positions," he commanded. "This is what we've trained for. Today, we prove that the Order of the Fox cannot be destroyed by brute force. Today, we make history." The Order's fighters moved to their assigned positions with practiced efficiency. Naruto had spent months fortifying this headquarters, turning the mountain complex into a death trap for anyone foolish enough to attack it directly. Explosive tags hidden in every corridor, seal traps that would disorient and separate enemy forces, prepared escape routes for civilians and non-combatants, strategic choke points that would force the superior enemy numbers into confined spaces where they couldn't use their advantage. But even with perfect preparation, 146 fighters couldn't hold off 327 elite shinobi indefinitely. This battle would come down to leadership, strategy, and Naruto's willingness to make the impossible possible. "Hinata." He turned to her, his expression serious. "I need you to lead the evacuation of non-combatants. Get them to the secondary safe house using Route 7. If this battle goes badly, the Order needs survivors to rebuild." "I'm not leaving you." Her voice was firm. "My place is at your side, fighting. Your place is where I need you most." Naruto's tone softened slightly. "Please, Hinata, I need to know that if the worst happens, the Order will continue. You're the only person I trust with that responsibility." She wanted to argue. He could see it in her eyes. But she also understood the logic. Finally, she nodded. "I'll get them to safety, but you better survive this, Naruto. That's an order." "I'll do my best." He managed a slight smile. "Now go. The enemy will be here in less than an hour." Hinata hesitated, then moved forward and kissed him. Quick, fierce, desperate. "Come back to me," she whispered against his lips. "Always," he lied, knowing his strategic mind had calculated only a 47% chance of survival. She left to organize the evacuation, and Naruto turned back to the tactical map. This battle would define the Order of the Fox. Win, and they'd prove that the great nations could be defied. Lose, and the revolution would die here in these mountains. He wouldn't lose. The enemy army arrived like a storm. 300 shinobi moving in coordinated formations that spoke of extensive training and preparation. Naruto watched from the headquarters' main tower as they surrounded the mountain complex, cutting off all apparent escape routes. A figure stepped forward from the army's ranks, and Naruto recognized him even at a distance. Kakashi Hatake, his former sensei, now leading the extermination force. "Naruto Uzumaki." Kakashi's voice was amplified by a jutsu. "Surrender yourself and your followers. The Hokage has authorized me to offer clemency to any order members who lay down their arms and return to the village peacefully. This is your only chance to end this without further bloodshed." Naruto stepped onto the tower's balcony, his white fox mask gleaming in the sunlight. When he spoke, his voice was also amplified, carrying across the valley with theatrical authority. "Kakashi-sensei, you come here with an army to destroy what I've built, and you call it mercy? You serve a system that ordered genocide against the Uchiha clan, and you claim moral authority? The only clemency I'm interested in is the clemency the shinobi world will show to those who perpetuated its corruption once the order has won. Then you choose war." Kakashi's voice carried genuine regret. "I chose revolution." Naruto corrected. "You're the ones who made it war. Remember that when you count the bodies." Kakashi gave the signal, and the army attacked. The first wave hit the outer defenses and walked straight into Naruto's trap. Explosive tags detonated in a carefully orchestrated sequence that channeled the attackers into kill zones where order members waited in ambush. Wind style great breakthrough, one of Naruto's fighters called out, the massive gust of wind catching a dozen enemies and slamming them into prepared spike traps. But the enemy adapted quickly. Their sensor types identified the explosive tags and began disarming them. Their Earth-style users created barriers that blocked the Order's ambush points. Superior numbers and training began to tell as the Leaf forces pushed deeper into the complex. Naruto moved through the battlefield like a force of nature, his shadow clones engaging enemies at every choke point, while his real body struck at critical nodes in their formation. Rasengan! The spiraling sphere caught a Sand Village Jonin in the chest, putting him down hard. Another enemy tried to flank from behind, but Naruto had already predicted the attack. His tactical positioning left no openings. Water style, Water Dragon Jutsu, a Mist Ninja's massive jutsu, roared down a corridor, and Naruto's response was immediate. Shadow Clone Jutsu! 20 clones formed a wall, taking the Water Dragon's impact while Naruto prepared his counter. Wind style, Rasen Shuriken. The technique, one of Naruto's most devastating jutsu, screamed through the corridor like a howling demon. The Mist Ninja's eyes widened in shock as the technique struck, the cellular level damage leaving him incapacitated and bleeding. But for every enemy Naruto defeated, 2 more appeared. The Order's fighters were skilled and motivated, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Slowly, inevitably, they were being pushed back. Kira's voice crackled over the communication network, tight with strain. East corridor is falling. We can't hold them. Fall back to position Gamma, Naruto commanded, his strategic mind still orchestrating the battle from multiple fronts. Trigger the collapse seals as you retreat. The collapse seals detonated, bringing down the East corridor in a controlled avalanche that bought precious minutes. But Naruto knew they were losing. Time to escalate. He reached deep into the Nine-Tails chakra reserves, drawing on power he normally suppressed. Red, malevolent energy flooded through him, and he felt his consciousness touch the demon foxes. Need a hand, Kit? Kurama's voice rumbled in his mind. I need enough power to turn the tide, Naruto responded mentally. Can you give me that without losing control? For you, always. You're the first Jinchuriki who's ever treated me like a partner instead of a weapon. Let's show these fools what real power looks like. The Nine-Tails chakra erupted around Naruto in a visible aura, and the attacking shinobi hesitated. They'd been briefed on Naruto's Jinchuriki status, but none of them had expected him to access this much of the beast's power. Naruto moved, and the world bent around his enhanced speed. He appeared in the middle of an enemy formation, his chakra-enhanced strike sending Jonin flying like leaves. Tailed Beast Bomb, he roared. And a miniature version of the Nine-Tails ultimate technique formed in his palm, a sphere of condensed destruction that he hurled into the enemy's rear ranks. The explosion was catastrophic. 20 enemy shinobi were caught in the blast radius, and the shockwave disrupted formations across the entire battlefield. The Leaf forces reeled, suddenly uncertain about pressing their attack against an opponent wielding tailed beast power, but Kakashi wasn't deterred. He appeared through the smoke, his Sharingan spinning, his lightning blade Chidori crackling with deadly energy. I'm sorry, Naruto, but I can't let you continue this path. Then you'll have to kill me, Sensei. Naruto's voice was cold. Because I'm not stopping. They clashed in a burst of speed that made their movements almost impossible to follow. Kakashi's Chidori met Naruto's Rasengan in a collision that shattered the ground beneath them. They broke apart, circled, attacked again. Kakashi's experience and Sharingan prediction fought against Naruto's tactical genius and overwhelming power. You've become strong, Kakashi admitted, dodging a chakra-enhanced strike that cratered stone. Stronger than I ever imagined. But strength without wisdom is just destruction, Naruto. You're destroying the world, trying to save it. The world was already destroyed. Naruto snarled, his Rasengan spinning up again. You just couldn't see it from inside your comfortable village. The system you defend is built on the corpses of people like me. Jinchuriki, bloodline holders, anyone who threatens the status quo. I'm not destroying the world, Kakashi. I'm burning away the rot. Their next exchange was even more intense. Kakashi used his Kamui to phase through Naruto's attacks, but Naruto's strategic mind adapted, predicting the angles where Kakashi would materialize and placing attacks there preemptively. Back and forth, teacher and student locked in a battle that neither wanted, but both knew was inevitable. And then disaster struck. An Earth Country Jonin broke through the Order's defensive line and reached the evacuation route. Naruto heard the screams through his communication network, non-combatants under attack. His strategic mind calculated instantly. If he broke off from Kakashi to save them, the enemy leader would rally his forces and overrun the remaining defenders. If he didn't break off, civilians would die. There was no good choice. But Hinata made the choice for him. She appeared in a blur of motion, her Byakugan active, her gentle fist style flowing like water. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. Her strikes hit the Earth Jonin's Tenketsu points with perfect precision, shutting down his chakra network and dropping him unconscious. Hinata, no. Naruto's voice cracked with an emotion he thought he'd killed. You're supposed to be evacuating the civilians. I got them to safety. Her voice came back over the communication network, calm despite the chaos. Now I'm where I belong, protecting you. But her diversion had drawn enemy attention. 3 Jonin converged on her position, recognizing the Byakugan and prioritizing its elimination. Hinata fought brilliantly, her defensive style keeping the 3 attackers at bay, but she was outnumbered. Naruto tried to disengage from Kakashi, but his former sensei wouldn't let him. Your fight is with me, Naruto. Don't move. The command wasn't directed at Kakashi, it was at reality itself, fueled by desperation and the Nine-Tails chakra. Naruto burst through Kakashi's guard with raw power, taking a Chidori to the shoulder but breaking free. He sprinted toward Hinata's position, his enhanced senses tracking her chakra signature, his strategic mind calculating arrival times and attack vectors. He was going to make it. He was going to save her. And then everything went wrong. A mist village Jonin, one Naruto hadn't even identified as a threat, appeared behind Hinata with a water blade technique. She sensed him with her Byakugan and tried to turn, tried to block, but she was already engaged with 3 opponents. There were too many angles, too many attacks. The water blade pierced through her back and emerged from her chest. No! Naruto's scream was primal, anguished, utterly inhuman. The Nine-Tails chakra exploded around him in a manifestation of pure rage. He crossed the remaining distance in a heartbeat, his chakra-clad hand tearing through the mist Jonin like paper. The 3 other attackers died before they could even register his arrival, but it was already too late. Hinata collapsed, and Naruto caught her, his hands trembling as blood, so much blood, poured from the wound. His strategic mind, which had calculated every angle of every battle, went utterly silent. All his intelligence, all his planning, all his power meant nothing in the face of this simple, devastating reality. She was dying. Hinata, no, you can't. His voice broke. Medical ninja. I need a medical ninja now. But Kira's voice in his ear was gentle and final. There are no medical ninja left, Naruto. They all fell in the east corridor. Hinata's hand touched Naruto's mask, her fingers leaving bloody streaks on the white surface. Take it off, she whispered. I want to see your face. He tore the mask away with shaking hands, revealing the tears streaming down his face, the cold, calculating revolutionary reduced to a heartbroken boy watching his most precious person slip away. Hinata, please, he begged, his voice raw. Don't leave me. I need you. The Order needs you. I can't do this without. You can, she interrupted softly, blood bubbling at her lips. You're the strongest person I know, Naruto. You'll keep fighting. You'll change the world. Not without you. Desperation clawed at his throat. His left eye, the Geass, began to glow without his conscious command, the red sigil flaring in response to his emotional state. Hinata, I command you. He stopped, the words dying in his throat. The Geass required eye contact, but Hinata's eyes were already glazing over, her focus slipping away. And even if she could meet his gaze, what command could stop death itself? The Geass was absolute, but it couldn't override biology, couldn't unmake a fatal wound. Don't, Hinata whispered, somehow understanding what he'd almost tried. Don't waste it on me. Save it for the revolution, for the world you're building. Fuck the revolution. The curse was vicious, desperate. Fuck the world. I don't care about any of it if you're not. Yes, you do. Her smile was soft and sad, her hand squeezing his weakly. You care so much it hurts. That's why I love you. That's why I followed you. Because underneath all the coldness, all the strategy, you care about people. I care about you. Naruto's tears fell onto her face. You're the only person who matters, Hinata. You're the only one who saw me, who believed in me when everyone else feared what I'd become. I can't lose you. You're not losing me. Her voice was fading now, each word an effort. I'll always be with you. Every victory, every step forward, every life you save, I'll be there, watching, believing. The battle raged around them, but Naruto was aware of nothing except the girl dying in his arms. His strategic mind had failed him. His overwhelming power had meant nothing. He'd achieved impossible victories and lost the one thing he couldn't afford to lose. Hinata, he whispered desperately. I love you. I should have said it before, should have told you every day, but I was afraid to be that vulnerable. But I love you. Please don't. I know, she interrupted, her smile widening despite the pain. I've always known. Her hand started to fall away from his face, and Naruto caught it, held it against his cheek like he could anchor her to life through sheer will. So is that okay then? She whispered, her eyes meeting his one final time with perfect clarity. Naruto? And then she was gone. The light faded from her eyes. Her hand went limp in his. The gentle strength that had defined Hinata Hyuga, her unwavering loyalty, her quiet determination, her absolute faith in him, simply ceased to be. Naruto knelt there in the blood and dust, holding her body, and something inside him shattered. Not his mind, that remained sharp and analytical even in his grief. Not his power. The Nine-Tails chakra still raged around him, responding to his emotional state. What broke was the last remnant of the boy he'd been, the final fragment of hope that this path could end in anything but pain. He'd known people would die. He'd accepted that price, but knowing intellectually and experiencing the reality were entirely different. Hinata's death wasn't a strategic calculation or an acceptable loss. It was agony that made his Geass awakening seem gentle by comparison. The battlefield had gone quiet around him, both sides watching the masked revolutionary cradle the body of a fallen comrade. Even in war, some moments demanded silence. Kakashi approached slowly, his Sharingan deactivated, and his expression genuinely sorrowful. Naruto, I'm sorry. She fought bravely. Get away from me. Naruto's voice was dead, empty of all inflection. All of you, get away from me right now. The Nine-Tails chakra exploded outward in a shockwave that sent everyone, Order members and enemy forces alike, flying backward. Naruto stood slowly, still holding Hinata's body, his face a mask of grief and rage. This war is over, he announced, his voice carrying across the entire battlefield with chakra-enhanced projection. Both sides withdraw immediately. You have 30 seconds before I stop holding back. Naruto, we can't just... Kira started. Now! His roar was bestial, inhuman, and absolutely final. Order members, retreat to the secondary safe house. That's an order. Anyone still here in 30 seconds will be caught in what's coming. His people didn't question it. They'd seen his strategic brilliance too many times to doubt him now. The Order members began withdrawing immediately, carrying their wounded, leaving their dead. Kakashi hesitated, his tactical mind recognizing a threat when he heard one. Leaf forces, fall back, move. The armies retreated in opposite directions, putting distance between themselves and the grieving Jinchuriki. Naruto waited until they were clear, until only he and Hinata's body remained in the blood-soaked courtyard. Then he let go. The Nine-Tails chakra erupted in full manifestation, not the controlled enhancement he'd used during battle, but the raw, apocalyptic power of a tailed beast. A four-tailed chakra cloak formed around him, and reality itself seemed to warp from the sheer density of malevolent energy. Kurama, Naruto said mentally, his voice breaking. I need to destroy something. I need to make them understand that this had consequences. I understand, Kit, the Nine-Tails responded, its voice surprisingly gentle. Let's give them something to remember. Naruto's hands came together in a seal, and the air itself began to scream. Tailed Beast Bomb. But this wasn't the miniature version he'd used before. This was a full-scale Bijudama, a sphere of condensed destruction that dwarfed the mountain headquarters. He aimed it not at the retreating armies. Even in his grief, his strategic mind recognized that would be wasteful, but at the mountain itself. The tailed beast bomb struck the headquarters dead center, and the explosion could be seen for 50 kilometers. The mountain complex that had been the Order's main base simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant of apocalyptic power. The shockwave leveled trees for kilometers around, and the mushroom cloud that rose into the sky would be visible across 3 countries. When the dust settled, there was only a crater where the mountain had been. And in the center of that crater, still holding Hinata's body, knelt Naruto Uzumaki. He destroyed his own headquarters, eliminated his strongest fortification as a message, as a promise, as a declaration of the wrath that was coming. The shinobi world had taken Hinata from him. Now, he would take everything from them. The aftermath of what became known as the Mountain Massacre sent shockwaves through the political landscape. Both sides had suffered catastrophic losses. The Order lost 47 members, including their main base, while the Leaf-led alliance lost 93 shinobi to Naruto's final attack in the preceding battle. But the true impact was psychological. Naruto had demonstrated that when pushed to his limits, he could unleash destruction on a scale that rivaled the tailed beasts themselves. The great nation's attempt to exterminate the Order of the Fox had failed, and the cost had been devastating. More importantly, the battle had radicalized Naruto in ways his enemies couldn't have predicted. In a hidden safe house deep in Earth Country, Naruto sat alone in a darkened room, Hinata's body wrapped in white cloth beside him. He'd been there for 3 days, neither eating nor sleeping, simply sitting with her in silence. His strategic mind had never stopped working. Even in grief, perhaps especially in grief, his tactical genius was analyzing, planning, calculating. The old Naruto, the one who'd believed in reforming the system, in building something better through careful revolution, had died with Hinata. What remained was something colder, sharper, infinitely more dangerous. Kira found him on the 4th day, her expression carefully neutral as she entered the darkened room. "The Order is scattered but intact," she reported quietly. 99 members survived the battle. Morale is complicated. They're angry, grieving, but also terrified of what you've become. What I've become. Naruto's voice was soft but carried an edge like razor wire. I've become what they made me, what the system forced me to be. I know. Kira sat down across from him. Naruto, we need to talk about what comes next. The Order needs leadership, direction. We need to know what you're planning. Total war. The words were simple, final, devastating. No more surgical strikes. No more careful strategy. No more holding back. I'm going to burn the shinobi system to the ground and salt the earth where it stood. That's suicide, Kira said bluntly. We can't win against the combined might of... I'm not trying to win. Naruto interrupted, his eyes, including the Geass-like, gleaming in the darkness. I'm trying to destroy, to make them understand that their system has consequences. They killed Hinata. They're going to pay for that in blood and ash until there's nothing left of the world they built. And then what? Kira pressed. After you've destroyed everything, after you've made them pay, what then? Then, Naruto paused, his strategic mind encountering a variable it couldn't calculate. Then I don't know. Maybe I die in the flames. Maybe I build something new from the ruins. But that's a problem for future Naruto. Present Naruto just needs to destroy. Kira studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. The Order will follow you. They always have. But you need to understand, this path you're walking, this total war you're declaring, it ends with you dead or transformed into the very thing you set out to destroy. I'm already transformed, Naruto said quietly. I became a monster the moment I used the Geass on Danzo. Everything since then has just been degrees of monstrosity. Hinata was the only thing keeping me tethered to humanity, and now she's gone. He stood, his movements mechanical, and gestured to Hinata's wrapped body. I want her buried in the Valley of the End, between the statues of Hashirama and Madara. A place where 2 ideologies clashed and changed the world. That's fitting for what she represented, the moment when my revolution became something more than abstract ideology. I'll arrange it, Kira promised. And Kira? Naruto's voice stopped her at the door. Recall all Order members. Tell them we're mobilizing for total war against the 5 great nations. No more hiding. No more running. We're going to make them come to us, and when they do, we're going to show them what real power looks like. Understood. Kira hesitated. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about Hinata. She was a good person. She didn't deserve what happened. No one deserves what happens to them, Naruto said softly. But that's the world we live in. A world where good people die and corrupt systems endure. I'm going to change that, whatever the cost. After Kira left, Naruto sat alone with Hinata's body for one final night. He didn't cry, had no tears left to shed. Instead, he spoke to her in the darkness, words that no one else would ever hear. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry my path led to this. I'm sorry that loving me cost you everything." The silence offered no absolution. "But I promise you this," he continued, his voice hardening. "Your death will not be meaningless. I'm going to tear down the system that killed you. I'm going to build a world where people like us, people who dare to challenge the status quo, don't have to die for their convictions. That's my final promise to you, Hinata. I'll finish what we started." He stood, lifting her wrapped body gently. There was work to do, a funeral to arrange, an army to gather, a war to plan. The grief would never truly leave him, he knew. It would become part of his tactical calculations, another variable in his strategic equations. Hinata's death had transformed him from a revolutionary leader into an avenging demon, and the shinobi world would learn to fear what they'd created. The game had changed. No more chess-like precision, no more careful positioning of pieces. This was total war, and Naruto Uzumaki was done playing by anyone's rules but his own. As he carried Hinata's body toward the Valley of the End for burial, Naruto's Geass eye glowed softly in the darkness. The power of absolute obedience had seemed like the ultimate weapon when it first awakened. Now he understood. Real power wasn't forcing others to obey. Real power was the willingness to sacrifice everything, to burn the world down, to become a monster if that's what justice required. He'd started this revolution to change the system. Now he would finish it by destroying everything the system had built. The shinobi world had created Naruto Uzumaki, the Jinchuriki, feared him, persecuted him, and finally banished him. In response, he'd become Kitsune, the revolutionary, challenging their corruption with strategy and brilliance. But they'd made one fatal mistake. They'd taken Hinata from him. And in doing so, they'd created something far worse than either Naruto or Kitsune. They'd created a demon who had nothing left to lose. The funeral was held at dawn, when mist still clung to the Valley of the End like a shroud. Naruto stood alone before Hinata's grave, positioned precisely between the massive statues of Hashirama and Madara, two men whose ideological clash had shaped the shinobi world, just as Hinata's death would shape what came next. Kira and the surviving order members watched from a distance, respecting his solitude. They'd learned not to interrupt when their leader needed to grieve, though few understood the true transformation occurring in those silent moments. Naruto's hand rested on the simple marker he'd carved himself. No elaborate monument, no flowery epitaph, just her name and a single line. She believed in a better world. "I'm going to give you that world," he whispered to the grave. "Not the one we dreamed about together, that died with you, but a world of peace, bought with blood and darkness and my own damnation. You won't be here to see it, but maybe wherever you are, you'll know I kept my promise." The nine tails stirred in his mind. "What you're planning, Kit? It's madness. Even I can see that." "All great change looks like madness at first," Naruto replied mentally. "The question is whether the madness achieves its purpose." He turned away from the grave, his face settling into an expression of cold determination that would have been unrecognizable to anyone who'd known the old Naruto. The boy who dreamed of being Hokage was buried with Hinata. What remained was something sharper, colder, infinitely more dangerous. "Kira," he called out, "gather the order. It's time to explain what comes next." The order assembled in an abandoned fortress 30 kilometers from the Valley of the End. 99 survivors of the mountain massacre, their faces showing varying degrees of grief, anger, fear, and anticipation. They'd followed Naruto this far. Now they would learn how much further the path extended. Naruto stood before them without his fox mask, letting them see his face clearly. His blue eyes, one normal, one containing the Geass, held an intensity that made even his most loyal followers uncomfortable. "The war we've been fighting is over," he began, his voice carrying absolute authority. "We won some battles, lost others, exposed corruption, freed the oppressed. But ultimately, we failed. The system remains intact. The villages continue their cycle of violence. And Hinata died because I wasn't strong enough to protect what I cared about. He paused, letting the words sink in. Several order members shifted uncomfortably. So we're starting a new war. Not a revolution, a conquest. I'm going to unite the entire shinobi world under a single banner through overwhelming force and absolute authority. Every village, every nation, every hidden power structure will bow to me or be destroyed. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Kira stepped forward, her expression carefully neutral. Naruto, that's impossible. Even with the Nine Tails' power and your Geass, you can't defeat the combined military might of. I can. He cut her off with absolute certainty. And I will. But understand, I'm not creating the peaceful world we dreamed of. I'm creating something else. A world united in hatred of me. A world where I become the symbol of everything wrong, everything evil, everything that must be destroyed. I will be the tyrant that makes the 5 great nations' worst leaders look benevolent by comparison. Why? The question came from one of the younger members, his voice cracking. Why would you do that? Naruto's smile was sharp and terrible. Because hatred is a more powerful unifier than hope. Because people will accept peace if it comes with the promise of revenge against a common enemy. Because the only way to truly change the system is to become so monstrous that destroying me becomes the world's sole purpose. And in achieving that purpose, they'll build something better. The Zero Requiem, Kira breathed, recognition dawning in her eyes. You're planning to unite the world against you, then die as the ultimate villain. Let your death be the catalyst for lasting peace. Exactly. Naruto's voice was cold. I will conquer. I will oppress. I will commit atrocities that make Danzo look like a benevolent ruler. And when the entire shinobi world has united in their hatred of me, when they're ready to build something better from the ashes of my tyranny, someone will kill me publicly. The tyrant will fall, and the world will rejoice in their shared victory. The silence that followed was absolute. Finally, an older order member, a former Miss Jonin named Takeshi, spoke up. And us? What happens to the order? Some of you will help me build this tyranny. You'll become my enforcers, my generals, the face of oppression that makes the world hate not just me, but everything I represent. Others will publicly defect, become resistance leaders, heroes fighting against the evil kitsune. Both roles are necessary. You're asking us to become villains, another member said slowly, to help you commit the very atrocities we set out to prevent. I'm asking you to understand that sometimes the only way to kill the old system completely is to create something so terrible that the alternative becomes preferable. Naruto's voice softened slightly. I'm not forcing anyone. Those who can't stomach what's coming are free to leave. I'll even provide safe passage and new identities. But those who stay must commit fully. Half measures will ruin everything. Kira stepped forward. I'm staying. Not because I understand the complete plan. I don't think anyone but you truly understands it. But because you've never steered us wrong. If this is what's necessary, then this is what we'll do. One by one, others stepped forward. Not all of them, about 20 chose to leave, their moral lines drawn at becoming deliberate villains. Naruto gave them the promised safe passage without judgment. Those who remained numbered 79, and their faces showed a mix of dedication, fear, and grim determination. Then we begin, Naruto declared. Phase 1, Conquest of the Minor Nations. We'll start with Rain Country, a fitting irony, given that Akatsuki once operated from there. We'll establish it as our base of operations and demonstrate to the world that the era of village supremacy is over. The assault on Rain Country was designed for maximum psychological impact. Naruto didn't simply conquer, he dominated with such overwhelming force that resistance seemed futile. His army of 79 fighters, enhanced by hundreds of shadow clones and the Nine Tails chakra, swept through Rain's defenses like a tsunami. The country's leader, a man named Hanzo, who'd styled himself after the legendary salamander, tried to organize resistance. It lasted approximately 11 minutes. Naruto appeared before Hanzo alone, his white fox mask gleaming in the rain. Hanzo of Rain Country, I am Kitsune, and I'm claiming your nation as the first territory of my new empire. Surrender peacefully, and your people will be treated fairly. Resist, and I'll demonstrate why resistance is futile. Hanzo's answer was a water-style jutsu that would have killed a normal opponent. Naruto didn't even dodge. He let the attack hit him, his Nine-Tails chakra cloak absorbing the damage completely. "Is that your answer?" Naruto's voice was disappointed, then witnessed despair. His Geass eye flared beneath the mask. "Look at me." Hanzo, thinking he was being offered a fair fight, met Naruto's gaze. The red bird-shaped sigil blazed. "I, Naruto Uzumaki, command you, order your forces to stand down, then publicly announce that Rain Country now belongs to Kitsune's empire. You will serve as my governor here, administering the territory with absolute loyalty to my rule." Hanzo's face went blank. Then his expression shifted to fanatical devotion. "At once, my lord." Within an hour, Rain Country had fallen without its leader ever understanding he'd been enslaved. Naruto established his capital in the tallest tower of Rain's central city, a dark fortress that would become the symbol of his tyranny. But conquest was only the beginning. Naruto needed to demonstrate that his empire was different, crueler than the 5 great nations. He implemented harsh policies, mandatory registration of all shinobi, heavy taxation to fund his military expansion, public executions of anyone caught plotting against his rule. These weren't necessary for maintaining control. The Geass-compelled Hanzo could have enforced loyalty through normal means, but they were necessary for the narrative. The world needed to see him as a tyrant. News of Rain Country's fall spread rapidly. The 5 great nations, still recovering from the mountain massacre, initially dismissed it as a minor border conflict. They failed to recognize the strategic implications of Naruto establishing a permanent territorial base. That failure would cost them dearly. Naruto's second target was the Land of Iron, home of the samurai. Taking it served multiple purposes. It was the site where the 5 Kaji summit had convened to discuss his destruction, making its conquest symbolically powerful. It also eliminated the neutral territory where nations traditionally met for diplomacy, forcing all future negotiations to occur on his terms. The samurai were formidable warriors, their chakra-enhanced blades making them dangerous even to Jonin-level opponents. Their leader, Mifune, was a legendary fighter who'd once survived an encounter with Hanzo the Salamander, the original one, not Naruto's puppet. Naruto met Mifune in single combat before the assembled samurai army, his tactical mind calculating every angle. "Kitsune," Mifune said formally, his hand resting on his katana. "The Land of Iron has remained neutral in shinobi conflicts for generations. We have no quarrel with you." "Your neutrality is an illusion," Naruto replied, his voice amplified to reach every samurai present. "You hosted the summit where the 5 great nations plotted my destruction. You provided them with sanctuary while they coordinated their attacks. Neutrality that enables oppression is complicity. Then you leave us no choice but to fight." Mifune drew his blade in a movement too fast for most eyes to follow. "I challenge you to honorable single combat. If you win, the Land of Iron submits. If I win, you withdraw and leave us in peace." Naruto laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "Honor? I'm the man who killed his own sensei, destroyed his former village's reputation, and became the most wanted criminal in the shinobi world. What use have I for honor?" Before Mifune could respond, Naruto's shadow clones erupted from the ground around them, 50 identical copies, each one forming a Rasengan. Shadow clone jutsu, mass Rasengan barrage. The attack was overwhelming and utterly without honor. Mifune's blade moved with incredible speed, deflecting several Rasengans, but the sheer number made defense impossible. He took 3 direct hits, the spiraling chakra tearing through his armor and flesh. As Mifune fell, bleeding and broken but still alive, Naruto approached him slowly. "This is the lesson I'm teaching the world. Honor loses to overwhelming force. Fair fights are a luxury for those who can afford them. I can't, and I won't pretend otherwise." He looked at the assembled samurai, their faces showing shock and horror at how easily their legendary leader had fallen. "The Land of Iron is now part of my empire. Any who resist will die. Any who submit will be allowed to keep their lives and serve in my army. Choose quickly." Most chose submission. Those who didn't were cut down by Naruto's forces with brutal efficiency. Within a day, the Land of Iron's fortress, symbol of samurai independence, flew Kitsune's banner. 2 nations conquered in 2 weeks. The shinobi world was beginning to take notice. The 3rd Raikage was the first of the 5 Kage to respond to Naruto's territorial expansion. He dispatched an army of 200 Cloud Village elite jonin with orders to retake the Land of Iron and capture or kill Kitsune. Naruto met them at the border with only 20 of his order members. The Cloud Commander, a massive man named Atsui, laughed when he saw the size of Naruto's force. 20 against 200? Even you aren't that arrogant, Kitsune. I'm not arrogant, Naruto corrected calmly. I'm efficient. Watch. His hands formed the cross seal. Shadow Clone Jutsu. The sky darkened as chakra smoke erupted across the battlefield. When it cleared, the Cloud forces found themselves facing not 20 opponents, but 2,000. Each one was a perfect copy of Naruto, each one capable of Jonin-level combat. That's impossible, Atsui breathed. No one has that much chakra. I have the 9 tails. Naruto's voice came from all 2,000 clones simultaneously, creating an echoing effect that was psychologically devastating. I have unlimited chakra for as long as my partner is willing to lend it, and today, Kurama is very willing. The battle that followed was less a fight than a massacre. 2,000 Narutos overwhelmed the Cloud forces through sheer numerical superiority and perfect tactical coordination. Every clone knew exactly what the others were doing, moving in flawless synchronization to exploit every weakness, every gap in the enemy formation. When Atsui tried to retreat, a Naruto clone appeared in his path. The Geass eye blazed. Look at me. Atsui, desperate, met the clone's gaze. I, Naruto Uzumaki, command you, return to the Raikage and tell him exactly what happened here. Describe my power in detail. Make him understand that conventional military force cannot defeat me. Then kill yourself in his office as proof that I could have forced you to do anything. The clone dispelled, transferring the Geass command to Naruto's original body. The battle ended with the Cloud forces in full retreat, and their commander Geass compelled to deliver Naruto's message in the most brutal way possible. 3 days later, news reached Naruto that Atsui had indeed delivered the message exactly as commanded, describing Naruto's overwhelming power in detail before drawing a kunai and cutting his own throat in front of the Raikage. The psychological impact was devastating. Cloud Village's forces, known for their aggression and confidence, began to fear engaging Kitsune directly. The Raikage issued orders for his shinobi to avoid confrontation unless absolutely necessary. One Geass command had neutralized an entire village's military initiative. Over the next 3 months, Naruto's conquest accelerated. He took Sound Country by defeating Orochimaru's remaining forces in a battle that lasted less than an hour. He claimed the smaller nations bordering the 5 great powers through a combination of overwhelming force and strategic Geass usage. Each conquest followed the same pattern: demonstrate overwhelming power, offer surrender terms that were harsh but survivable, execute anyone who resisted with brutal efficiency. Naruto's empire grew, and with it, his reputation as a tyrant. But reputation required more than military victories. It required acts of deliberate cruelty that made the world hate him on a personal level. Naruto implemented policies designed to be hated. Mandatory conscription from conquered territories. Young shinobi forced to serve in his army or face execution of their families. Heavy taxation that impoverished the territories under his control while funding his continued expansion. Public executions of traitors, often rebels who were actually order members playing their assigned roles. But the deaths were real and the horror genuine. Suppression of any cultural or religious practices that might unite people against him, replaced with mandatory worship of his empire. Seizure of property from noble families, redistributed not to the poor, but to his most loyal followers, creating a new aristocracy of cruelty. Each policy was calculated to generate maximum hatred while maintaining functional control. Naruto needed the world to despise him, but he also needed his empire to be efficient enough to challenge the 5 great nations militarily. His order members struggled with their roles. Many had joined the revolution to fight injustice, not perpetuate it. Naruto held private meetings with those who questioned, explaining the endgame, reminding them that every cruelty served the ultimate purpose of creating a world so united in hatred that his death would bring lasting peace. "We're becoming monsters," Kira said during one such meeting, her voice hollow. "I executed a 12-year-old boy today because his father tried to assassinate you. He was crying, begging, and I cut him down because those are the orders. How is this better than what we fought against? It's not better, Naruto said quietly. It's worse. Deliberately, necessarily worse. The villages oppressed people through bureaucratic distance and systemic injustice. I'm oppressing people directly, personally, in ways they can see and hate. When I fall, they won't just be relieved, they'll be unified in their triumph over a common enemy. And if we lose ourselves completely before that happens, Kira pressed, if we become actual monsters instead of people playing roles, Naruto's expression was haunted. Then I'll die knowing I saved the world by damning everyone who followed me, including myself. That's the price of the Zero Requiem. He paused, his hand unconsciously touching a photograph he kept hidden in his jacket, Hinata smiling at the camera, taken before everything went wrong. The person I was died with her. What's left is just a weapon aimed at the system. Weapons don't need to survive their purpose. 6 months into his conquest campaign, Naruto controlled 12 nations and had an army of over 3,000 fighters, a mix of Geass-compelled loyalists, opportunistic mercenaries, and order members playing their roles. His empire stretched from the land of iron in the north to the land of tea in the south, creating a crescent of territory that threatened to encircle the 5 great nations. The Kage could no longer ignore the threat. A second 5 Kage summit was called, not in the fallen land of iron, but in the Hidden Leaf village itself. Tsunade, the 3rd Raikage, the 4th Kazekage, the 5th Mizukage, and the 3rd Tsuchikage gathered with a single purpose: coordinate the complete destruction of Kitsune's empire before it grew too powerful to stop. Naruto learned of the summit through his intelligence network and smiled. This was the moment he'd been engineering, when the 5 great nations stopped viewing him as a rogue ninja to be hunted and started viewing him as an existential threat to be destroyed. He sent them a gift. A messenger arrived at the Leaf Village gates carrying a sealed scroll. When opened in the Kage Summit chamber, it revealed a detailed map of all Naruto's territorial holdings, his army's composition, and his strategic positions. Attached was a simple note: "Come and take it. Kitsune." "It's a trap," the Mizukage said immediately. "He wants us to attack his fortified positions where he has every advantage. Or he's arrogant enough to think he can defeat all 5 villages simultaneously," the Raikage countered. "Either way, we can't ignore this. He's openly challenging us." Tsunade studied the map carefully, her strategic mind working through possibilities. He spread his forces across 12 territories. If we strike simultaneously at multiple points, he can't defend everywhere. Even with shadow clones and the Nine-Tailed chakra, he has limits. "Then we mobilize everything," the Tsuchikage declared. "Every jonin, every elite force, every secret weapon we've been holding in reserve. We hit him from all directions, overwhelm his defenses, and crush this rebellion before it grows stronger." The plan was sound tactically. What the Kage didn't understand was that Naruto had calculated this exact response. He wanted them to commit everything to a simultaneous assault. He needed them desperate, unified, and absolutely convinced they could win. Because when they lost despite their combined might, the psychological impact would shatter their confidence completely. The great offensive began at dawn on a clear spring morning. 5 armies, one from each great nation, struck at Naruto's empire simultaneously. 3,000 shinobi from the Leaf Village attacked his southern territories. 2,000 Cloud Ninja hit his northern positions. Mist forces struck from the east, sand from the west, and stone from the central regions. It was the largest military mobilization in shinobi history. Over 12,000 elite fighters coordinating a multi-front assault designed to overwhelm Kitsune's forces through sheer numerical and tactical superiority. Naruto had been expecting exactly 8,000. The extra 4,000 meant the villages had committed reserves he hadn't known about. His strategic mind recalculated instantly. "Kira, implement Contingency Plan 7, he ordered through the communication network. "All territories fall back to defensive positions. We're not trying to hold ground, we're trying to channel them." "Understood," Kira's voice crackled back. Defensive retreat across all fronts. What followed was a masterclass in strategic withdrawal. Naruto's forces gave ground deliberately, fighting hard enough to make the victories feel earned, but not hard enough to actually stop the advance. The 5 nations' armies pushed deeper into his territory, convinced they were winning, They were walking into the killing field. Naruto had spent 6 months preparing for this moment. Every territory had been fortified with hidden explosive tags, collapse seals, and environmental traps. More importantly, he'd used shadow clones to memorize every square meter of terrain, every choke point, every strategic position. When the Five Nations forces had pushed deep enough into his territory, far from their supply lines, separated from each other by vast distances, convinced of their impending victory, Naruto sprang the trap. All forces, activate Protocol Omega. His command went out simultaneously across all fronts. The landscape exploded. Carefully placed explosive tags detonated across 12 territories simultaneously, creating artificial avalanches, collapsing tunnels, destroying bridges, and transforming the terrain into chaos. The Five Nations armies found themselves cut off from retreat, separated into smaller groups, confused and disoriented. And then Naruto attacked, not with his 3,000 fighters. They were still outnumbered 4-1. Instead, he used the Ninetales, chakra, to create an army of shadow clones that numbered in the tens of thousands. The sky darkened with chakra smoke as 20,000 Naruto clones materialized across the battlefield. Each one knew the terrain perfectly. Each one coordinated with all the others through shared consciousness. Each one willing to sacrifice itself to achieve the greater tactical objective. The psychological impact was devastating. The Five Nations forces had expected to overwhelm a numerically inferior enemy. Instead, they found themselves outnumbered, surrounded, and fighting an opponent who seemed to be everywhere at once. "This is impossible!" A Leaf Jonin screamed as 5 Naruto clones engaged him simultaneously. "No one can maintain this many clones." "I'm not no one," all 20,000 clones responded in perfect unison, their voices echoing across the battlefield. "I'm the Ninetales Jinchuriki, and today you learn why tailed beasts were feared." The battles that raged across Naruto's empire over the next 3 days would be remembered as the Clone Majden, a name that would have been comical if the casualty count hadn't been so horrific. Naruto's clones didn't fight to kill unless necessary. Instead, they used Geass strategically on enemy commanders, turning the Five Nations leadership against itself. A Leaf Captain would suddenly order his troops to attack their stone allies. A Miss Jonin would use her jutsu on her own comrades. Confusion spread like wildfire through the enemy ranks, but the cost was enormous on both sides. Naruto's original forces suffered heavy casualties as they held key positions against overwhelming numbers. The Five Nations lost thousands to the combination of environmental traps, friendly fire from Geass-compelled commanders, and the sheer exhaustion of fighting an enemy that seemed endless. On the 3rd day of battle, Naruto stood atop his fortress in Rain Country, surrounded by the corpses of fallen enemies and allies alike. His Ninetales chakra cloak blazed with full intensity, and his Geass eye glowed beneath his mask. The battle had cost him. Of his original 3,000 fighters, less than 800 remained. But the Five Nations had lost worse, nearly 6,000 casualties, their armies scattered and demoralized, their confidence shattered. Tsunade herself appeared before Naruto's fortress, her face showing exhaustion and grim determination. "Naruto," she called out, dropping the kitsune pretense. "Stop this madness. You've made your point. The system needs to change. I'll admit that. But this path leads nowhere but destruction." "The system doesn't need to change," Naruto replied, his voice cold. "It needs to die. And you're going to help kill it, Tsunade. You just don't know it yet." He raised his hand, and a tailed beast bomb began forming. Not the full-size version that had destroyed the mountain, but large enough to devastate the Leaf forces assembled below. "I could end this right now," he declared. "Kill you and every Leaf ninja here. But that would make you martyrs. Instead, I'm going to let you live with your failure. Return to your village and tell them that the era of the 5 great nations is over. Tell them that Kitsune's empire cannot be defeated through conventional means. And tell them that anyone who resists my rule will watch their families suffer." He dispersed the tailed beast bomb without firing it, a demonstration of power and restraint that was somehow more terrifying than the attack would have been. Tsunade's hands clenched into fists, but she recognized a strategic withdrawal when she saw one. The Leaf forces retreated, carrying their wounded, leaving their dead. The other 4 nations did the same across all fronts. The Great Offensive had failed catastrophically, and Naruto's empire remained standing. But more importantly, the 5 great nations had united in their fear and hatred of him. The Zero Requiem was proceeding exactly as planned. In the aftermath of the Great Offensive, Naruto's tyranny intensified. He needed the world to hate him more, to fear him absolutely, to view him as an evil that transcended politics or military conflict. He ordered mass executions of prisoners taken during the battle. Not all of them, but enough to demonstrate cruelty. The executions were public, designed for maximum psychological impact. Families watched as their fathers, sons, brothers died for the crime of fighting against his empire. He implemented a new policy. For every assassination attempt on his life, 10 civilians from the assassin's home village would be executed. The policy was enforced with brutal efficiency, creating a climate where even resistance fighters hesitated, knowing their actions would doom innocents. He destroyed a small village in Fire Country that had harbored Leaf refugees, burning it to the ground and leaving only a single survivor to tell the tale. The survivor, Geass-compelled, spread the story across the continent. Kitsune showed no mercy, accepted no surrender, tolerated no resistance. Each atrocity was calculated. Each cruelty served the narrative. Naruto was building himself into the ultimate villain, the tyrant so terrible that his death would be celebrated across the entire shinobi world. But the cost to his soul was incalculable. Kira found him late one night in his private chambers, staring at Hinata's photograph with an expression of such profound anguish that she almost turned away. "I executed a child today," he said quietly, not looking up from the photograph. "An 8-year-old girl who threw a rock at one of my soldiers. The law says any act of resistance merits death, so I enforced it. Publicly, made everyone watch as I cut her down." "Was it necessary?" Kira asked, though she already knew the answer. "For the Zero Requiem? Yes. To make the world hate me enough that my death brings lasting peace? Absolutely necessary." His hands trembled as he set the photograph down. "But Hinata would have hated what I've become. She believed I could change the world while remaining good. I proved her wrong." "Maybe she would understand," Kira offered. "Maybe she'd see the purpose behind." "No." Naruto's voice was firm. "She died believing I was better than this. Let her rest with that belief. I won't dishonor her memory by pretending she'd approve of the monster I've chosen to become." He stood, his composure settling back into place like a mask. "How long until the 5 nations attempt their next offensive?" "Intelligence suggests 6 months," Kira reported, shifting back to business. "They're rebuilding their forces, developing new strategies, possibly seeking additional allies. Then we have 6 months to make them hate me even more." Naruto's voice was cold again, the vulnerability locked away. "Issue new orders, increase taxation in conquered territories by 50%, implement mandatory labor conscription for all males aged 12 to 60, and execute anyone caught hoarding food or resources. I want the people suffering visibly enough that the 5 nations' next offensive looks like liberation rather than invasion." "Naruto," Kira hesitated. "Some of our own people are questioning whether this is still about creating peace. They're starting to wonder if you've actually become the tyrant you're pretending to be." "Good," he said simply. "When the Zero Requiem reaches its conclusion, I need them to hate me too. Otherwise, they might hesitate when the time comes. Everyone needs to believe I'm a monster who deserves death, including the people who helped create me." 8 months after the failed Great Offensive, Naruto controlled 18 territories and had established himself as the shinobi world's greatest threat. His empire stretched across half the continent. His army had been rebuilt to over 5,000 fighters, and his reputation for cruelty was absolute. But military conquest alone wouldn't achieve the Zero Requiem's ultimate goal. Naruto needed something more, a symbolic victory that would demonstrate his power while simultaneously galvanizing the world's hatred to unprecedented levels. He needed to conquer one of the 5 great nations directly. His target was Hidden Sand Village. The choice was strategic. Sand was the weakest of the 5 nations militarily, still recovering from the 4th Kazekage's assassination and subsequent political instability. It was also geographically isolated, making it difficult for the other nations to provide support. And perhaps most importantly, conquering an actual great nation would force the world to acknowledge that his empire was no longer a rebellion. It was a legitimate geopolitical power that could challenge the established order. The assault on Sand Village was designed for maximum psychological impact. Naruto didn't use stealth or subtlety. He marched 5,000 soldiers directly toward the village in broad daylight, his banner flying openly, his intent unmistakable. The fifth Kazekage, a young woman named Matsuri who'd risen to power after Gaara's disappearance, mobilized every available fighter to defend the village. 2,000 sand shinobi assembled at the village gates, their formation defensive but determined. Naruto approached alone, walking across the desert with his white fox mask gleaming in the sunlight. When he was within speaking distance of the defenders, he stopped. "Kazekage Matsuri," he called out, his voice amplified by chakra. "I'm offering you a choice that I rarely extend. Surrender your village peacefully, acknowledge sand as part of my empire, and I'll spare your people. Resist, and I'll demonstrate why resistance against me is futile. Choose quickly." Matsuri's voice carried from the village walls, defiant despite the fear. "The hidden sand village has stood for over a century. We will not surrender to a tyrant, no matter how powerful you claim to be." "Then witness power beyond claiming," Naruto replied. His hands came together in the cross seal. Shadow clone jutsu. The desert exploded with chakra smoke as 10,000 clones materialized, surrounding the village completely. Each one was a perfect copy of Naruto, each one capable of Jonin-level combat, each one coordinated through shared consciousness. "This is your final warning." All 10,000 clones spoke simultaneously, their voices creating a deafening echo. "Surrender or die." Matsuri's answer was a signal flare, and the sand defenders attacked. What followed was less a battle than an execution. 10,000 Narutos overwhelmed the 2,000 defenders through sheer numerical superiority and perfect tactical coordination. Sand shinobi who trained their entire lives found themselves fighting opponents who moved in flawless synchronization, who anticipated every strategy, who seemed to be everywhere at once. Naruto's original body walked through the chaos, his Geass eye active, seeking the Kazekage. He found her defending a group of civilian evacuees, at her puppet techniques holding off a dozen of his clones. "You fight well," he acknowledged, "but you're fighting for a losing cause." Matsuri's response was a barrage of poison senbon from her puppet, forcing Naruto to dodge. "I fight for my people, something a monster like you wouldn't understand." "You're wrong," Naruto said quietly. "I understand better than you know, but understanding doesn't change necessity." His Geass flared. "Look at me." Matsuri, desperate and exhausted, made the fatal mistake of meeting his eyes. The red bird-shaped sigil blazed. "I, Naruto Uzumaki, command you. Order all sand forces to stand down and surrender immediately. Then announce publicly that Hidden Sand Village is now part of my empire, and you serve me willingly as its governor." Matsuri's face went blank. Then her expression shifted to programmed loyalty. She raised her hand, signaling the sand forces to cease fighting. "All sand shinobi, stand down!" Her voice carried across the battlefield. "I am ordering immediate surrender. Hidden Sand Village acknowledges Kitsune's authority." The shock of their leader's sudden capitulation broke the sand defenders' resistance completely. Within minutes, the battle was over. Naruto had conquered an entire great nation with minimal casualties on either side, the Geass turning what should have been a prolonged siege into a bloodless victory. But bloodless wasn't what Naruto needed for the Zero Requiem. After accepting Sand's surrender, after positioning his forces throughout the village, after establishing control, Naruto ordered executions. He selected 50 Sand Jonin at random from among the surrendered forces, fighters who'd done nothing wrong, who'd simply defended their home, and had them executed publicly in the village square. The method was designed for maximum cruelty. Each was killed by a different member of Naruto's order, demonstrating that his entire organization was complicit in his tyranny. "This is the price of resistance," Naruto announced to the assembled sand villagers, forcing them to watch. 50 lives for your Kazekage's defiance. Remember this lesson. Remember that mercy is a luxury I don't offer twice. The executions were unnecessary from a control standpoint. He already had the Geass-compelled Matsuri as his puppet leader. They were entirely about narrative, about making the world hate him more, about demonstrating that he was a tyrant who killed for the sake of killing. News of San's fall and the subsequent executions spread across the shinobi world within days. The reaction was exactly what Naruto had calculated: absolute horror and renewed determination to destroy him. The remaining 4 great nations held an emergency summit and declared total war, not a military operation, but actual war with all its implications. Naruto Uzumaki, known as Kitsune, was declared the greatest threat to world peace in history. Bounties were placed on him that exceeded anything seen before. Assassination squads were formed with the sole purpose of eliminating him. But more importantly, resistance movements began forming across his empire. Groups of civilians and shinobi who decided that death was preferable to living under his tyranny. These movements had no coordination, no central leadership, but they shared a common goal: kill Kitsune and free the world from his oppression. Naruto allowed these movements to flourish. He needed them. When the Zero Requiem reached its conclusion, these resistance fighters would be the heroes of the new era, the brave souls who'd fought against impossible odds to overthrow a tyrant. 12 months into his tyrannical reign, Naruto controlled 23 territories, including Hidden Sand Village. His empire's population exceeded 8 million people, most of whom lived in fear and hatred of their ruler. His military had grown to 7,000 fighters, enhanced by countless Geass-compelled soldiers who served with fanatical loyalty, but the cost to his forces was severe. Of the original 79 order members who'd chosen to follow him on this dark path, only 43 remained. The others had died in battle, been assassinated by resistance movements, or, in 3 cases, committed suicide rather than continue participating in the atrocities. Kira assembled the survivors in Naruto's throne room, a deliberately ostentatious chamber in what had been Sand Village's Kazakaji Tower. Naruto sat on a throne of black stone, his white fox mask gleaming in torchlight, the very image of tyrannical authority. "We're breaking," Kira said without preamble, her voice hollow. "Not just physically, though that's bad enough. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, we're breaking, Naruto. People who joined the order to fight injustice are now committing atrocities daily. How much longer can this continue?" "Until it's finished," Naruto replied, his voice cold. "The Zero Requiem has always had a timeline. We're approaching the final phase." He stood, addressing the assembled survivors. "I'm not blind to what this path has cost you. Every execution you've carried out, every order you've followed, every time you've become the monster we set out to destroy, I've asked that of you, and I know what it's done to your souls." His voice softened slightly. "But we're close now. The 4 great nations are preparing their final offensive, a coordinated assault designed to destroy me once and for all. When they attack, they'll commit everything. And when I defeat them despite their full commitment, when I demonstrate that even their combined might cannot stop me, that's when the world will be ready." "Ready for what?" one of the survivors asked. "Ready to accept your tyranny permanently?" "Ready for my death," Naruto corrected. "Ready to unite completely in celebration when I fall. Ready to build something better from the ashes of my empire, because they'll be so relieved I'm gone that they'll never want to risk creating another tyrant." He removed his mask, showing his face for the first time in months. The order members gasped. He'd aged dramatically, his face lined with exhaustion and pain, his eyes haunted by the weight of countless atrocities. "This is what the Zero Requiem costs," he said quietly. "Not just my life, but my soul. Every person I've killed, every order I've given, every time I've played the tyrant, it's destroyed who I was piece by piece. When I die, I'll die hated by the world. But you can be redeemed. You can become the heroes who helped overthrow me in the end." "How?" Kira asked. "When the 4 nations launch their final offensive, some of you will publicly defect. You'll join the resistance, fight against my forces, become symbols of rebellion against tyranny. And when I fall, you'll be among those celebrated for freeing the world." "And the rest of us?" another asked. "Will die with me," Naruto said simply. "Someone needs to be the tyrant's loyal soldiers, the ones who stood by him to the end. Your deaths will be necessary to complete the narrative." The room fell silent. Finally, Kira spoke. Let us choose our own roles. Don't assign who lives and who dies. Let each of us decide whether we want redemption or to follow you to the end. Naruto nodded slowly. Fair enough. Those who want to defect and live tell me now. I'll arrange for your escape and provide you with intelligence to make your defection credible. Those who choose to stay, I'll ensure your deaths serve a purpose. 23 chose redemption. They would defect before the final battle and become resistance heroes. 20 chose loyalty. They would die alongside Naruto as the tyrant's last defenders. Among those who chose to stay was Kira. Why? Naruto asked her privately after the others had left. You could live, Kira. You could be celebrated as a hero who saw the light and turned against me. Why choose death? Because someone needs to know the truth, she said quietly. Someone needs to die understanding that you were never actually a monster, that every atrocity served a purpose, that you sacrificed your soul to save the world. If everyone believes you were truly evil, then your sacrifice becomes meaningless. The sacrifice is the point, Naruto argued. My reputation as a tyrant needs to be absolute. And it will be, Kira insisted. The world will hate you. History will remember you as the greatest villain. But I'll know the truth, and maybe, in whatever comes after death, that will matter. Naruto pulled her into an embrace, a rare moment of genuine emotion. Thank you, he whispered, for everything, for following me down this dark path, for understanding what needed to be done, for being willing to die for a truth no one else will ever know. Just promise me one thing, Kira said. When it's over, when you're reunited with Hinata wherever the dead go, tell her that what we did, all of it, was in service of the dream she believed in, the world of peace she wanted to see. I will, Naruto promised, though I doubt she'll forgive me. Maybe not, Kira agreed, but she'll understand. That's enough. The Four Nations' final offensive began 2 months later on a winter morning when frost covered the ground. 10,000 shinobi, the combined military might of Leaf, Cloud, Mist, and Stone villages, marched on Naruto's empire from 4 directions simultaneously. They'd learned from their previous failure. This time, they didn't push deep into his territory. Instead, they established fortified positions just inside his borders and began systematically destroying his infrastructure. Supply lines were cut, communication networks disrupted, fortified positions bombarded with long-range jutsu. The strategy was sound. Bleed his empire slowly, force him to fight on multiple fronts simultaneously, prevent him from concentrating his forces for a decisive engagement. But they'd made one critical miscalculation. They assumed Naruto would fight defensively, trying to hold his conquered territories. They didn't realize that he'd been waiting for exactly this moment. The moment when the entire shinobi world committed to destroying him. All forces implement the final gambit. Naruto's command went out across his empire. Abandon all territories except Sand Village. Every soldier, every resource, every strategic asset, fall back to our capital. Let them think they're winning. His 7,000 fighters withdrew systematically, appearing to flee before the Four Nations' advance. The 23 who'd chosen defection made their moves now, publicly abandoning Naruto's forces and joining the resistance. Their defections were celebrated across the shinobi world as proof that even his most loyal followers were abandoning the tyrant. Within 3 weeks, Naruto's empire had contracted to a single fortified position, Hidden Sand Village, now transformed into a fortress city defended by Naruto's remaining forces and thousands of Geass-compelled soldiers. The Four Nations' armies converged on the city, surrounding it completely. 10,000 elite shinobi against Naruto's 5,000 defenders, many of whom were unwilling Geass slaves. The outcome should have been certain, but Naruto had one final surprise. As the Four Nations prepared to assault the city, Naruto appeared atop the highest tower, his form wreathed in the full Nine-Tails chakra cloak. Not the controlled version he'd used before. This was the complete manifestation, 8 tails of pure chakra extending from his body, reality warping from the sheer density of power. Citizens of the shinobi world, his voice carried across the battlefield, amplified by chakra to reach not just the assembled armies, but every corner of the continent through a network of communication seals he'd prepared months earlier. You've united against me. You've declared me the greatest threat to peace. You've committed everything to destroying the tyrant Kitsune. He raised his hands, and the sky darkened as an enormous tailed beast bomb began forming, larger than anything he'd created before, a sphere of condensed destruction that could level the entire city and everyone in it. "I could end this now," he declared. "Kill you all, destroy the four nations' military capacity, leave the shinobi world defenseless against my tyranny. But I'm not interested in ruling a wasteland. I'm interested in making a point." The tailed beast bomb continued growing, its crimson light casting shadows across the landscape. "You cannot defeat me through force. You cannot match my power. You cannot win through conventional means. The only way to stop me is through sacrifice, to risk everything, to accept that destroying me might destroy you as well. So make your choice. Retreat now and accept my rule permanently, or commit to a battle that will kill thousands on both sides." The challenge was designed to be impossible. Retreat meant acknowledging his supremacy, which would shatter morale completely. Attack meant accepting catastrophic casualties against an opponent demonstrating godlike power, but the four nations had anticipated this moment. They'd prepared their own final gambit. From the Leaf forces, a figure emerged, someone Naruto recognized despite the years and distance: Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke had been operating independently since Naruto's banishment, pursuing his own revenge against those who destroyed the Uchiha clan. But the emergence of Kitsune's empire had changed his priorities. He'd returned to offer his services to the allied nations with a simple promise: he could kill Naruto. "Naruto!" Sasuke's voice carried across the battlefield. "You want to talk about sacrifice? Let's make this personal. You and me, single combat. Winner takes everything. You win, the allied nations retreat and acknowledge your empire. I win, your forces surrender unconditionally." It was a transparent trap. Sasuke's Sharingan had evolved to Mangekyo, giving him abilities that could potentially counter even the Nine Tails' power. The allied nations clearly hoped he could eliminate Naruto through individual combat while minimizing their own casualties, but Naruto saw an opportunity. Sasuke had unknowingly offered himself as the perfect candidate for the Zero Requiem's final act. A former comrade, someone with personal connection to Naruto, a celebrated hero who'd overcome his own darkness to fight for the world. Killing such a person would make Naruto irredeemably evil in the world's eyes. And being killed by such a person would create the perfect martyr for the new era. "I accept," Naruto declared, dispersing the tailed beast bomb. "But we fight now, immediately, before your allies can prepare their next trick. And Sasuke, when you lose, when you're lying broken before me, remember that I gave you this chance." The armies pulled back, creating a massive circle around the two former comrades. Sasuke drew his sword, the Kusanagi blade he'd taken from Orochimaru, while Naruto descended from the tower, his nine-tailed chakra cloak fading to conserve energy. They stood facing each other across 50 meters of desert sand, two men who'd walked different paths toward the same broken world. "You've become exactly what you claim to hate," Sasuke said coldly. "A tyrant who rules through fear and overwhelming force. The villages may be corrupt, but you're worse. You've killed thousands, enslaved millions, created suffering on a scale that makes the old system look benevolent." "I know," Naruto replied quietly. "Every word is true. I've become a monster. The question is whether you're strong enough to stop me." They attacked simultaneously. Sasuke's Sharingan spun, his Amaterasu black flames that burned everything they touched, roaring toward Naruto. Naruto countered with a Rasengan enhanced by Nine Tails chakra, the spiraling sphere deflecting the flames. They clashed in close combat, Sasuke's sword meeting Naruto's chakra-clad fists in a burst of energy that cratered the ground. They broke apart, circled, attacked again. Sasuke's Chidori screamed as it extended into a blade of lightning. Naruto's Rasen Shuriken howled as it spun toward his opponent. The battle raged for hours, two masters of their respective techniques pushing each other to the absolute limit. Sasuke's Mangekyo Sharingan let him predict Naruto's movements, but Naruto's overwhelming power and tactical genius let him counter even predicted attacks. They fought until both were bleeding and exhausted, their jutsu growing weaker, their movements slower. The watching army saw an epic clash between titans. What they didn't see was the conversation happening through carefully controlled killing intent, a form of communication only two fighters at this level could understand. "You're holding back," Sasuke's killing intent communicated. You could have ended this 10 times over. As are you, Naruto's intent replied. Your Susanoo could match the Nine Tails, but you haven't used it. What's your game, Naruto? What are you really trying to achieve? Meet me tonight alone, away from the armies. I'll explain everything. Sasuke's hesitation was visible even through his Sharingan. Finally, he nodded imperceptibly. Tomorrow we finish this? Naruto declared loudly for the watching armies. I'll give you one night to prepare your final techniques, then we end this farce. Both fighters withdrew to their respective camps, leaving the armies confused but cautiously hopeful. Sasuke had fought the tyrant to a standstill. Perhaps he really could win. They met at midnight in a canyon 5 kilometers from the battlefield. Naruto arrived without his mask, showing his face clearly in the moonlight. Sasuke came alone, his Sharingan active, but his sword sheathed. Talk, Sasuke demanded. And it better be good, because right now I'm considering just killing you and sorting out your cryptic plans afterward. Do you remember what I said to you when we were 12? Naruto began. After you tried to kill me for the first time, after you'd chosen revenge over our friendship, you said you understood my hatred, Sasuke recalled. That you'd been alone too, that you knew what it meant to be consumed by darkness. I lied, Naruto said quietly. I didn't understand then, but I do now, because I've walked the same path you did, Sasuke. I've chosen revenge over morality, power over compassion, destruction over creation. And like you, I've discovered that revenge doesn't satisfy, it just creates emptiness. What does this have to do with? Everything, Naruto interrupted. Because the tyrant you've been fighting, the monster who's conquered half the continent and committed unspeakable atrocities, he's not real. He's a role I've been playing. Every cruel order, every execution, every act of oppression, all of it has been theater designed for a single purpose. He explained the Zero Requiem in detail. The plan to unite the world through shared hatred of him. The necessity of becoming an evil so terrible that his death would be celebrated across the entire shinobi world. The ultimate goal of creating lasting peace through his sacrifice. Sasuke listened in silence, his Sharingan reading Naruto's chakra for any sign of deception, finding none. You're insane, Sasuke said finally. You're asking me to kill you in front of the entire shinobi world, to become the hero who slayed the tyrant, to live with that lie for the rest of my life. Yes, Naruto confirmed simply. And if I refuse, if I tell everyone the truth right now, then the Zero Requiem fails, the world remains divided, and the cycle of hatred continues unchanged. Naruto's voice was calm. Everything I've done, every person who's died following me, every atrocity I've committed, it all becomes meaningless. You're asking me to be complicit in your suicide, Sasuke said. To murder someone who's orchestrated their own execution. That's not justice, Naruto. It's just elaborate self-destruction. It's the only way to break the cycle, Naruto insisted. The shinobi system is built on violence and fear. The villages compete for resources and power, creating endless war. The only way to end it is to create an enemy so terrible that destroying him unites everyone in shared purpose. I'm that enemy, Sasuke, and you're the hero destined to destroy me. Why me? Sasuke's voice cracked slightly. Why does it have to be me specifically? Because you're the only one who's walked far enough into darkness to understand what I'm doing, Naruto said quietly. Because you've killed for revenge and learned how hollow it feels. Because you understand that sometimes saving the world requires becoming the villain. And because, he hesitated. Because I trust you to carry this burden without breaking. To live with the knowledge of what you've done and why. To be the hero the world needs, even if it means lying forever about who I really was. Sasuke was silent for a long moment, his Sharingan dimming as he processed the weight of what was being asked. You've thought of everything, haven't you? He said finally. Every angle, every contingency, every possible outcome. This whole empire, this entire war, it's all been choreographed from the beginning. Not all of it, Naruto admitted. I didn't plan for Hinata's death. That changed everything, made me willing to go darker than I'd originally intended. But yes, the broad strokes have always been the same. Unite the world against me, then die so they can build something better. Hinata. Sasuke's expression softened slightly. I heard about her. I'm sorry, Naruto. She was good. She was everything. Naruto's voice broke. She believed in me when everyone else feared what I'd become. She followed me into darkness because she trusted that my intentions were good. And she died because I wasn't strong enough to protect her while executing this plan. He pulled out the photograph he always carried, Hinata smiling, before everything went wrong. She's the reason I know this will work, because her death proved to me that people can inspire others even in their absence. The world celebrated when news of her death spread, not because they hated her, but because they saw her as a victim of my tyranny. Her memory became a symbol of resistance against me. And now you want to join her, Sasuke said quietly. I've wanted that since the moment she died, Naruto admitted. Every day since has just been going through the motions, playing the role, waiting for this moment when I can finally stop. Tomorrow, when you kill me, I'll finally get to see her again. Tell her that I kept my promise, that I changed the world, even if it cost me everything. Tears streamed down his face now, the cold, calculating tyrant reduced to a broken man crying for what he'd lost. Hinata, I'm coming to see you soon, he whispered to the photograph. I'm so tired, and I miss you so much. Just a little longer, and this nightmare will be over. I can finally rest. Sasuke felt something twist in his chest, an emotion he thought he'd killed when he pursued revenge against Konoha. Empathy, perhaps. Or recognition of shared pain. If I do this, he said carefully, if I play my role in your Zero Requiem, what happens to your followers, the ones who've committed atrocities in your name? 20 chose to stay until the end, Naruto explained. They'll die with me tomorrow, remembered as the tyrant's loyal monsters. 23 already defected and joined the resistance. They'll be celebrated as heroes who saw the light. The choice was theirs. And the thousands of people you've enslaved with that Geass power? The compulsion ends with my death, Naruto said. They'll be free to remember everything they did under my control. Many will be traumatized, but they'll also be witnesses to my tyranny. Their testimony will ensure the world never forgets how terrible I was. You've really thought of everything, Sasuke repeated. Even your own damnation is calculated. It has to be, Naruto replied. If I leave anything to chance, if the narrative isn't perfect, then the peace won't last. The world needs to hate me absolutely, to celebrate my death completely, to be so relieved I'm gone that they'll do anything to avoid creating another tyrant. He met Sasuke's eyes directly. Tomorrow, we fight for real. You'll use your Susanoo, I'll use the full Nine Tails manifestation. Make it spectacular, make it desperate, make it look like you barely won. And then, when the world is watching, when every eye is on us, you'll kill me. Run me through with your sword, pierce my heart, make sure I can deliver final words. What will you say? Sasuke asked. I haven't decided yet, Naruto admitted. Something that cements my role as the villain while hinting that my death serves a greater purpose. The exact words will depend on the moment. Trust me to play my part. I don't trust you, Sasuke said bluntly. I think you're insane, suicidal, and so consumed by guilt over Hinata's death that you've rationalized your self-destruction as saving the world. But I also think you might be right. The shinobi system is broken, the cycle of hatred is real, and maybe creating a common enemy really is the only way to unite everyone. He extended his hand. I'll do it. I'll kill you tomorrow, become the hero who ended your tyranny, and live with the lie. But you owe me something, Naruto. Name it. When you see Hinata again, wherever the dead go, tell her that you died trying to create the world she believed in. Don't let her think you became a monster for nothing. Naruto took Sasuke's hand, shaking it firmly. I promise. They stood there in the moonlit canyon, two former comrades who'd walked different paths through darkness, united one final time in shared understanding of what needed to be done. Tomorrow then, Sasuke said. Tomorrow, Naruto agreed. The world changes. Dawn broke over the battlefield with crystalline clarity. Both armies assembled in their formations, 10,000 allied shinobi on one side, 5,000 of Naruto's forces on the other. In the center, a clear circle had been marked for the final duel. Naruto emerged from Sand Village's gates, wearing his full Nine-Tails chakra cloak, 8 tails of pure energy extending from his body. His white fox mask gleamed in the morning sun, the symbol of his tyranny recognized across the entire shinobi world. Sasuke walked forward from the allied lines, his Mangekyo Sharingan active, purple chakra beginning to form around him as he initiated his Susanoo. The watching armies held their breath. This was it, the moment that would determine the fate of the shinobi world. "Last chance to surrender," Sasuke called out. "Disperse your forces, release your slaves, and I'll advocate for exile rather than execution." Mercy from an Uchiha? Naruto's voice carried dark amusement. The world really has changed. But my answer is the same as it's always been. Come and take it. They attacked. Sasuke's complete Susanoo manifested fully. A massive warrior of purple chakra wielding a sword large enough to split mountains. Naruto countered by drawing deeper on the Nine Tails' power, his form expanding until he stood equal in size to the Susanoo. A massive fox of crimson chakra with 9 tails lashing the air. Their first clash created a shockwave that knocked both armies backward. Susanoo's sword met the Nine Tails' claws in a burst of energy that cratered the earth. They separated, circled, attacked again. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. Tailed beast bombs collided with Susanoo's arrows, creating explosions visible from 50 kilometers away. The ground shook with each impact. Reality itself seemed to warp around their clash of absolute powers. Naruto fought with everything he had, not because he was trying to win, but because the spectacle needed to be believable. Sasuke did the same, their battle pushing both to their absolute limits. But as the fight progressed, Naruto began deliberately making mistakes. Small ones at first, a dodge that was slightly too slow, a tailed beast bomb that missed by a fraction. Then larger errors, leaving openings in his defense, committing too fully to attacks that Sasuke could counter. Sasuke recognized the pattern and pressed his advantage, his Susanoo's attacks growing more precise, more devastating. To the watching armies, it looked like the Uchiha was overwhelming the tyrant through superior skill and determination. The truth was that Naruto was orchestrating his own defeat. Now, Naruto's killing intent communicated to Sasuke. End it now while everyone's watching. Sasuke's Susanoo's sword drew back for a final thrust, gathering all its remaining chakra into a single devastating strike. Naruto's Nine Tails form remained still, apparently too exhausted to dodge. The sword pierced through the Nine Tails chakra cloak and into Naruto's chest, the massive blade running him through completely. The Nine Tails manifestation shattered, dispersing into crimson energy as Naruto's true form was revealed. A young man impaled on a chakra sword, blood already spreading across his shirt. Sasuke dismissed the Susanoo, letting Naruto fall to the ground. The tyrant's white fox mask cracked and fell away, revealing his face to the world for the first time in over a year. The allied armies erupted in cheers. The tyrant had fallen. The war was over. They'd won. Naruto lay on the ground, his life bleeding out rapidly, his breath coming in short gasps. He looked up at the sky, clear and blue, the kind of day Hinata had loved, and felt something like peace settling over him. Sasuke knelt beside him, close enough that their conversation wouldn't be overheard over the celebrating armies. Any final words for the history books? Naruto smiled, genuinely smiled for the first time since Hinata's death. Tell them that I regret nothing, that every action, every decision, every atrocity was mine alone. Let them hate me completely. Let them celebrate my absolutely, and let them build something better because they're so relieved I'm gone. That's for the crowd, Sasuke said quietly. What about for you? What do you really want to say? Naruto's eyes were already glazing over, his consciousness fading. Thank you, he whispered, barely audible, for understanding, for being strong enough to carry this burden, for giving me permission to finally stop. His hand reached into his jacket, pulling out the photograph of Hinata one last time. Blood stained the edges, but her smile was still visible. Hinata, he said, his voice fading, I kept my promise. The world will have peace, and I'm finally coming to see you. Wait for me. Just a little longer. The photograph fell from his fingers as his hand went limp. His eyes, one blue, one containing the now fading Geass sigil, stared sightlessly at the sky. Naruto Uzumaki, the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, the revolutionary known as Kitsune, the tyrant who'd conquered half the shinobi world, was dead. The celebration that erupted across the battlefield was deafening. Shinobi who'd fought against Naruto's tyranny embraced, cried, shouted their joy at the monster's death. The nightmare was over. They'd won. Sasuke stood slowly, his expression carefully neutral despite the weight crushing his chest. He just killed his former comrade, executed a man who'd orchestrated his own death as the ultimate sacrifice for peace, and now he had to play the hero. "The tyrant Kitsune is dead," he announced, his voice carrying across the battlefield. "His reign of terror ends today. The shinobi world is free." The cheering intensified. Sasuke Uchiha was celebrated as the hero who'd saved the world, the warrior who defeated an seemingly invincible tyrant through courage and skill. Only he knew the truth. Only he would carry the burden of understanding that Naruto's death had been the final act of the Zero Requiem, the culmination of a plan designed to unite the world through shared hatred of a common enemy. The aftermath unfolded exactly as Naruto had calculated. Naruto's empire collapsed within days of his death. The Geass compulsions ended with his life, freeing thousands who'd been enslaved to his will. Their testimony about his cruelty spread across the continent, ensuring that his reputation as history's greatest tyrant remained intact. The 20 Order members who'd chosen to die with him were killed in the chaos following his death, executed by celebrating allied forces who viewed them as monsters deserving no mercy. Their names would be remembered only as the tyrant's loyal servants, damned by history alongside their master. The 23 who defected became heroes of the new era. They told stories of how they'd seen the light, how they turned against the tyrant to fight for freedom. Some of them believed their own lies eventually. Others carried the truth in silence, honoring the sacrifice Naruto had asked of them. The territories Naruto had conquered were returned to their original governance or reorganized into new political structures. The harsh policies he'd implemented were immediately reversed. The suffering he caused became a cautionary tale about the dangers of tyranny and the importance of maintaining balanced power structures. Most importantly, the 5 great nations, united in their victory over Kitsune, chose to maintain their alliance even after his death. The war had proven that cooperation achieved what isolation never could. A formal treaty was signed creating the Allied Shinobi Forces, a permanent organization dedicated to preventing any future tyrant from rising to threaten world peace. The cycle of hatred, the endless competition between villages, the systemic injustices that had plagued the shinobi world for generations, all of it was addressed in the new era of cooperation. Not perfectly, human nature ensured that conflicts still arose, but better than before. The world had changed, and the catalyst for that change was the death of Naruto Uzumaki, remembered by history as the tyrant whose evil had united the world. 6 months after Naruto's death, Sasuke stood alone at Hinata's grave in the Valley of the End. Someone, he suspected Kira, one of the Order members who died defending Naruto, had carved an addition to the simple marker, where it once read only Hinata Hyuga. She believed in a better world. It now included a second line. Naruto Uzumaki, he gave her that world, though she never saw it. Sasuke placed flowers on both graves. Hinata's marked one, and the unmarked spot beside it where he'd buried Naruto's photograph. The actual body had been cremated publicly, the ashes scattered to prevent any shrine or memorial from forming. But this photograph, this last connection to the person Naruto had been before becoming Kitsune, Sasuke had saved it and buried it here. "I hope you're together now," Sasuke said quietly. "Wherever the dead go, whatever comes after this life, I hope she understood what you did. I hope she forgave you for the monster you became." He paused, pulling out a scroll, the first draft of the official history of Kitsune's tyranny. It painted Naruto as irredeemably evil, a cautionary tale about how even those with good intentions could become corrupted by power. "They'll never know the truth," Sasuke continued, "that you orchestrated your own damnation to save them, that every cruelty was calculated, every atrocity designed to unite them against you. History will remember you as a villain, and I'll help perpetuate that lie because that's what you asked of me." He set the scroll on fire, watching it burn. "But I'll know. I'll carry the truth until I die, and maybe that's enough. You gave the world peace through your sacrifice. You proved that sometimes the only way to break a cycle is to become so terrible that destroying you becomes everyone's shared purpose." The ashes of the scroll scattered in the wind, carrying the lies that would become accepted history. "Rest well, Naruto," Sasuke said, turning to leave. You earned it. Whatever else you were, whatever you became, you earned the right to rest. As he walked away from the Valley of the End, Sasuke allowed himself a moment to imagine what Naruto and Hinata's reunion might have been like. Two souls who loved each other, separated by death, finally together again in whatever came after. He hoped Naruto had found peace. He hoped Hinata had understood. He hoped the sacrifice had been worth it. Behind him, the statues of Hashirama and Madara stood eternal watch over the graves of two more people whose ideological clash had shaped the shinobi world. The pattern continued, generation after generation finding new ways to fight the same battles, but this time, something was different. This time, the world was united, not in conflict, but in shared relief at a tyrant's death. This time, the peace might actually last. And if it did, it would be because Naruto Uzumaki had been willing to sacrifice everything, his reputation, his life, his very soul, to give the world a chance at something better. The Zero Requiem was complete. The legend of Kitsune, the tyrant who united the world through hatred of himself, would live forever. But the truth, that he'd been a hero wearing a villain's mask, a revolutionary who'd chosen damnation over compromise, a broken man seeking reunion with his lost love through the ultimate sacrifice, that truth died with him, and perhaps that was how it had to be. Epilogue, 20 years later. The Hidden Leaf Academy's history classroom was quiet as the instructor, a middle-aged woman named Sakura Haruno, concluded her lesson on the Kitsune War. And so, class, we remember this period as a dark time in shinobi history, she said, her voice carrying the weight of someone who'd lived through the events she described. The tyrant Kitsune conquered half the world through overwhelming force and terrible cruelty. Thousands died under his rule. Millions suffered his oppression. A young student raised her hand. Sensei, why did he do it? Was he just evil? Sakura hesitated, an expression crossing her face that her students couldn't interpret. She'd been there during the final battle. She'd watched Sasuke kill Naruto, and in the years since, she'd sometimes wondered about the boy she'd known, the loud, optimistic ninja who dreamed of being Hokage. Could that person really have become the monster Kitsune? Or had there been something else happening beneath the surface, something no one understood? That's a complicated question, she said finally. History remembers him as evil. But what makes someone evil? Their actions or their intentions? It's something you'll have to decide for yourself. Another student spoke up. But we defeated him, right? Sasuke-sama killed him and saved the world. Yes, Sakura confirmed. Sasuke Uchiha ended Kitsune's tyranny and helped establish the allied shinobi forces that maintain peace to this day. He's a hero, and we owe him our gratitude. As the class filed out after the lesson ended, Sakura remained behind, staring at a photograph on her desk. It showed Team 7, herself, Sasuke, Naruto, and Kakashi, taken when they were all young and innocent. Naruto's smile in the photograph was genuine, full of hope and determination. So different from the cold tyrant he'd supposedly become. I still don't understand what happened to you, she whispered to the image. But I hope you found whatever you were looking for. I hope you're at peace wherever you are. She'd never know the truth of the Zero Requiem. History had been written, and Naruto Uzumaki's role as history's greatest villain was cemented forever. But sometimes, late at night when she couldn't sleep, Sakura wondered if there was more to the story. If maybe, just maybe, the boy who'd once promised to never give up on his friends had found a way to save the world that no one understood. She'd never know. No one would. The truth died with Naruto, leaving only questions and a peace that had lasted 20 years, longer than any period of stability in shinobi history. Perhaps that was answer enough. In whatever realm the dead inhabited, Naruto opened his eyes to find himself standing in a familiar place, the Valley of the End, but different somehow. Softer, peaceful, bathed in perpetual sunset light. A figure stood with her back to him, looking at something in the distance. Long dark hair, gentle presence, unmistakable even from behind. Hinata? His voice cracked. She turned, and her smile was exactly as he remembered, soft, warm, accepting. You took long enough, she said gently. I've been waiting. Naruto crossed the distance between them in a heartbeat, pulling her into an embrace that felt more real than anything he'd experienced since her death. I'm sorry, he whispered desperately. I'm so sorry for everything I became, everything I did, everyone who died because of my plan. I'm sorry you had to die before seeing the world I promised you." "Shh," Hinata soothed, her hand stroking his hair. "I know what you did. I've been watching. And Naruto, I'm so proud of you." He pulled back, searching her face for signs of disgust or horror. "How can you be proud? I became a monster. I committed atrocities. I died hated by the entire world. You sacrificed everything to give the world peace," she corrected. "You became the villain they needed so they could unite as heroes. You carried that burden alone, knowing you'd be remembered as evil because it was the only way to break the cycle. That's not a monster, Naruto. That's the most selfless thing anyone could do." "But the things I did were necessary," she said firmly. "I've had time to understand the Zero Requiem, to see how every piece fit together. You're right, I wouldn't have approved while I was alive. The cost was too terrible, the methods too dark. But seeing the world now, seeing the peace that's lasted 20 years, seeing children growing up without fear of war, I understand why you did it." Tears streamed down Naruto's face. "I missed you so much. Every day since you died was just going through the motions, waiting for this moment when I could see you again." "I know," Hinata said, wiping his tears away. "I felt it. Every time you looked at my photograph, every time you whispered my name, every moment you endured that terrible burden. I felt it all. And I was waiting, knowing you'd come to me when it was finished." "Is it really finished?" Naruto asked. "Did the Zero Requiem work? Will the peace last?" "Nothing lasts forever," Hinata said wisely. "But you gave them a foundation, a reason to maintain cooperation, a shared memory of what happens when they don't. That's more than the shinobi world has ever had before. You succeeded, Naruto." He collapsed against her, finally allowing himself to release the weight he'd been carrying for so long. The guilt, the pain, the loneliness, the horror of what he'd become, all of it poured out in racking sobs as Hinata held him, accepting him completely despite everything. "It's over now," she whispered. "You can rest. No more plans, no more strategies, no more carrying the world's hatred. Just us together for as long as forever lasts." "Just us," Naruto repeated, the words feeling like absolution. "That's all I've wanted since the moment you died." They stood together in the eternal sunset, two souls reunited after a separation that had felt like lifetimes. The world they'd left behind would continue without them, built on the foundation of Naruto's sacrifice and maintained by the peace his death had bought. History would remember him as a tyrant. Only a handful of people knew the truth, and in whatever came after death, Naruto Uzumaki had finally found what he'd been searching for since the beginning. Someone who understood, who accepted him completely, who knew every terrible thing he'd done and loved him anyway. "I'm home," he whispered into Hinata's hair. "Welcome home," she replied, holding him tighter. And in that moment, the boy who dreamed of being Hokage, who'd become a revolutionary, who transformed into a tyrant, who'd orchestrated his own death to save the world, was finally, completely, at peace. The Zero Requiem was complete. The legend of Kitsune would live forever in history as a cautionary tale. But the truth, the beautiful, terrible truth, was that Naruto Uzumaki had loved the world enough to let it hate him, had been strong enough to become the villain it needed, had been willing to sacrifice everything, including his own soul, to give future generations a chance at lasting peace. That truth died with him. But in whatever realm the dead inhabited, Hinata knew it. And for Naruto, that was enough.
The Zero Requiem of the shinobi world is complete. A new era forged by a master strategist's ultimate sacrifice. Thank you for witnessing this epic saga. If you crave more stories that defy destiny and reshape worlds, subscribe and join us for the next grand What If.